It might help if we
It
unmute.
would help if I unmuted my shit.
I can almost
Damn
guarantee
it.
you that intro was hard, though.
Yeah, definitely went in.
Oh, never a dull moment. Hey, it's Tuesday. But welcome everyone. I'm Curtis Rauen, joined by Bryson, Karbley, and Ricky Raines, coming off of a very close game against the defending Super Bowl champions. Appreciate everyone tuning in. I know we had to switch things up this week, but hey, holidays are coming. We had to make some adjustments. Let's start off. Bryce and Ricky, how you guys doing tonight?
Wonderful, man. I'm feeling good about the direction of this franchise. Like you said, Curtis, going toe-to-toe with the defending Super Bowl champs back-to-back in a game that many thought was going to be a blowout, judging based off of what we've seen so far from the Panthers this season. And man, it was an exciting game. So I'm still riding high off of that. You know, like you mentioned, we're recording on Tuesday because holiday plans get in the way, but not far removed from Sunday, and it's still feeling pretty good.
Ricky, you're muted. We'll figure this
out.
What
are we doing today? This is the thing, man. I'm not usually allowed to speak much on Tuesday nights, so like this is a new thing for me, right? This is usually watch TV shows with my wife night, you know. So like I'm used to being quiet. No. So the Panthers, man, I picked them to lose that game, right? 33-13. And when I was picking it, I felt so awful about it. But you know, man, in the past, we've just been really optimistic about like going for it and thinking, hey, man, you can hype yourself up into believing anything, right? That just felt like this perfect storm that we were just going to get rocked in that game, and that it was like a coming back to earth moment for the Panthers. And I've never been happier to be more wrong, because I walked out of that stadium, man, after going to that game and thought to myself, I'm all the way in. Like, I don't care how stupid this may sound now at this point. I'm picking Panthers to blow everybody out for the rest of the season. And if they lose the games, I'm good with it, man. I won't pick against my team anymore. Hopeless romantic Ricky is back.
I love that. I'll tell you what, I've never felt better after a loss in my entire life. Like people asked me at work the next day, and it felt like we had to win that game. It literally felt like a victory Monday. So a lot to talk about. We'll get into it. Let's start with what we're drinking this evening. I know, Bryson, you got some fruity sour drink you got working there. Go ahead. What do you got going on?
Yeah, it's an IPA. I was talking to Ricky about it a little bit before because I know he's kind of into that world, and it is from Sweetwater Gummies Tropical IPA. It's not a local beer, but I picked it up for two reasons. One, because gummies and the can looks cool, and I was like, okay, maybe it tastes like a gummy. And the second is that it's 9.5% alcohol, and it doesn't taste like gummies, but it's not a bad flavor, and you're getting 9.5% alcohol per can. So it's a win-win in my book, and they're very good. I recommend them to anybody kind of dipping their toe into the IPA game.
Yeah, imagine that, dipping your toe into something with a 9.5% ABV. But you're right, man. It's a really smooth, delicious beer. I got a couple tonight. My first one is called Sweet Carolina Pie. This is a sweet potato amber ale. And now I thought that this was appropriate for multiple levels, right? We're 2 days away from Thanksgiving. There's going to be sweet potato pie, pumpkin pie, something of the other is going to be on your table, depending on what your family calls it and what you use. But also Sweet Carolina Pie sounds a whole lot like Sweet Caroline, just a little bit off. And that's kind of all we were this week. We were just a little bit off from getting that stupid song in Bank of America. So that's the first one that I've got. And then I've got this Cassia Spiced Ale from Lost World Brewery. Again, this is kind of me transitioning from that Thanksgiving into the Christmas spirit here. This is a 6.8% ABV, nice cinnamon spice, warming spices type of ale. So I'm in a festive mood, man. I thought I would go all happy stuff tonight.
Wow.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, you guys went way out of, I'm always going basic, but I'm going the champagne of beers because I'm celebrating Bryce Young kicking some ass this past weekend. Yeah. So I went with Miller High Life. And my father-in-law was in town this weekend and he likes it. So that's what's left over in the fridge. So deal with it.
I love High Life. Your father-in-law sounds like a terrific man.
Yeah. High Life is hard to beat, man. It's delicious. It's up there at Coors Banquet.
Like drinking a stick of butter.
Before we get into the episode, I just want to let folks know, if you're tuning in for the first time, we do have a super chat. It's that little money icon in the chat. If you are so willing to give us some money, it's the time of giving. So we would appreciate it if you would do that. It's going to help with a lot of things with our podcast. So if you are feeling gracious, we would appreciate it. No pressure there. And as always, we do appreciate everyone in the chat and your activity throughout the episode. It keeps things flowing and helps us interact with you guys. So fire away in there. Don't be afraid to chime in what we're talking about. Ask us questions as the episode goes on. We would appreciate it. But let's dive into it. I first want to say this before actually we get into the actual game, because Ricky and I both were at the game this weekend, sat in different areas of the stadium, but we did tailgate before. And I just wanted to shout out everyone, all the Panther fans that showed up, and then also the content creators that we've had on this show and have interacted on Twitter on a daily basis. It was awesome to see them, awesome to actually meet some of them finally for the first time in person. JJ Hardy, we've had numerous times on this show, Bland as well. I believe we're on his podcast. I don't know if we've had him on ours yet, but just great all around guys. And then of course, Matt too, coming from Kansas City, getting to see him again. So yeah, it was awesome. I loved every bit of that and tailgating. Still regretting that Jack Daniels shot at the tailgate, but we digress and we move forward. But no, it was fun. It was
how do you regret something so perfect, Curtis? What do you mean, man? Like that was really like sticking the key in the ignition for me, man. That got me going. It was a wrap after that. I was ready to start screaming at every red and yellow jersey I saw in that place, which by the way was a whole lot, way too many.
I'm surprised you guys got Curtis to take a shot. He is not a shots guy.
Here's the best part. Here's the best part. There was no convincing that had to be done.
Wow.
We walked over to go and get the shots, and all of a sudden Curtis was standing right behind us. He's like, "Hey, I'm getting in on this." I was like, "Oh, hell yeah. Let's do this thing, Curtis."
Wow. He was feeling it.
Yeah.
We were a couple Jack Daniels and Cokes in. That's why.
Right. That's right. Yeah.
But yeah, you were right. It was, Bryson asked me before we got on here, what was the turnout for Chiefs fans? It was a sea of red. No doubt about it. Ricky, I don't know if you picked up on this. I tell Bryson this. I was shocked that the Chiefs did not take advantage of their chant. You always see opposing teams come in and they take over and they honestly really only did their chant at the end when they knew they were going to win the game. But they had many opportunities, I thought, throughout to do that, and they really didn't. So I appreciated that, because that was nice that didn't take over the Bank of America Stadium.
And I'll tell you, man, like the fans that I was talking to, right, because there was Chiefs fans that were sitting behind us and next to us and everywhere. Like everyone that I spoke to, I mean, they were nice fans, you know. And in the first half, it was a whole lot of like, "Hey, sorry about all this. Like, you know, this is going to get ugly." And then second half, it was a lot of like, "Hey, what were you saying to me earlier? You might want to watch your mouth real quick."
Yeah, you gotta love the banter back and forth. I'm very, and Bryson knows this. I try to talk shit when it's very quiet, and I'm pretty loud. So I wait until everyone is quieted down, and then I'll say something so everyone around me can hear it. And at one point, I think Travis Kelce might have been in the third quarter. He dropped a pass, and I yelled something like, "87, get your ass in a nursing home." And there was a guy sitting 2 rows in front of me with a Kelce jersey on. He goes, I think he said something like, "Hey, asshole, I'm already in a nursing home." So it was fun.
Wasn't Kelsey's mom like up in the 500 somewhere?
Yeah.
Didn't I see that? Yeah, that's
she
crazy.
Was like directly across on the other side of the stadium from us.
Okay.
Tepper didn't give them the discount in the suites, so I appreciate that. Made them go out in the elements. All right, let's talk about the game here.
Carlo's giving you some love for your jacket real quick, man. You might want to plug them again.
Hell yeah. So, hey, we UNRL sent us these. Bryson got us the hookup. This is the second year in a row they've done that for us. The jacket's incredible. It's light. It still keeps you warm. And it's just it looks great. Like, I don't know, like Made for More said, it's fire. I think it's Carolina on the back. I'm not entirely sure. And then Panthers on the front. It's got like the old style, like kangaroo pouch, like the old starter jackets had. So yeah, it's a great coat. I think they're still for sale, and actually they've been dropping. I think they have like a 4th version out now, and it's not the jacket. It might be a sweatshirt. But they have dropped a lot of NFL stuff lately. So if you guys are interested, go check them out on their website. So I do appreciate that. But yeah, let's talk about the game. Let's start with Bryce Young in this one, because I think he deserves it. And I just want to get your guys' overall observations of his play. And Bryson, if you want to start things off.
Yeah, I mean, I was watching at home. Unfortunately, wasn't able to make the game. I know Ricky tried his best to get me there, but sometimes the life wins, and you gotta hang out at home, especially when you live almost 3 hours away. So yeah, I'm going this weekend though. Just a heads up, Ricky, if you want to try to make it out, Curtis and I are going together, so we'll be there for the Bucs game. But yeah, I mean, as far on TV, like what I saw from Bryce Young was the best I've ever seen from Bryce Young. When you take into account the team that he was playing, everybody talks about the Green Bay game. Green Bay's defense was reeling at that time. Really wasn't versus a great opponent in that point in time. You go up against a Chiefs defense that's statistically, we talked about it last week, top 5 unit in the league, and Bryce Young deals on him, man. I believe it was the first time in the Andy Reid era in Kansas City that a team had scored on 75% of their drives. Like, I don't think any of us expected that from our predictions. And, we all believe in Bryce Young, but we did not expect him to ball at that level versus this defense. We thought maybe he might take some lumps in this game versus a defense that's very talented, a defensive coordinator in Spagnuolo who is magical with what he does with schemes and, blitzes and things. But Bryce Young had his highest grade of a PFF grade in his career versus his defense. It was 4th in the league last week. 7 big time throws. It felt like every single drive he was making plays, making things happen. And yeah, you wish some of those field goals early on were touchdowns, but like Curtis mentioned, I came away from this game feeling like it was a win. I remember tweeting at the end, no matter what happens on this field goal when the Chiefs are lining up the kick, I was like, the Panthers should come away with their heads held high in this game because the offensive line played well. The run game wasn't there, but that didn't matter because Bryce Young was playing so well. Like, I would have loved to see them commit more and get Jonathan Brooks involved more, but Bryce Young was just making throw after throw after throw, looking comfortable in the pocket, being decisive, running when he needed to, moving out of the pocket when he needed to. Just the player that we expected out of Alabama is what we saw last week. And it's definitely a step forward, continued step forward that he's taken the past 4 weeks in Carolina. I think the question mark has been answered. You absolutely move forward with a guy this year, and I would say next year as well. The draft isn't really abundant with quarterback talent. You have a lot of holes to fill in this team. Bryce has showed more comfortability in the system. That's what he attributes his better play to. And I think you just continue to move forward with that. And I'll get into Dave Canales' stuff later, but I thought even he had a good play calling game. So overall, I mean, I felt amazing watching that game because as someone who has supported Bryce through the ups and the downs and maybe towards the end I was a little bit frustrated, but I always felt like he had something. Like he had the ability to be a very good quarterback in this league, and he does. And he showed it versus the Kansas City Chiefs, and the Carolina Panthers lost by a field goal, in a game that no one expected them to be close in. And that was because of Bryce Young. 100%. Bryce Young went toe-to-toe with Patrick Mahomes and almost got his team a win. Got his team a win. So, I mean, overall, very, very pleased. I think it's a continued step forward, and I'm excited to see what he can do for the rest of the season.
And you mentioned it. You mentioned it with the red zone opportunities, right? And if a couple of more of those had translated into touchdowns over field goals, it's important to put the context with that too, that Bryce Young put one of those opportunities directly in the hands of Tommy Tremble with a beautiful pass. I mean, an absolute beautiful throw that Tremble didn't come up with, right? So when you look at that, and that was early in the game, that's one that could have changed a little bit of the fact that we got down 20-9 at the half. That trajectory, that feeling could have been different. But you know what, man? I'm not going to even hold too much of that against like Tommy, because what they did is they rallied in that second half. And one thing that we always talk about with Bryce Young, and one thing that I think that we all have agreed upon, whether you believe wholeheartedly in Bryce Young or not, or whether you had serious doubts and were starting to jump off that train, was that in pressure moments, in big moments, when he is asked to play, that kid can perform. And I say kid, I shouldn't call him a kid. He's a man. But that young man can perform. And he plays really damn well when those lights are bright. And there are no brighter lights than having the two-time defending Super Bowl champions and the world's greatest alien quarterback, Patrick Mahomes, coming to your home stadium, right? Like, that is the biggest show in the NFL. Doesn't matter what everyone else has. Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid will always be king as long as they're in the NFL until somebody knocks them off and proves otherwise. As for Bryce, man, look, he still did the things that so many people criticize him for. He just trusted his offensive line, and he was allowed to throw deeper. The concepts that were called in this game, and Bryson, you said it, you're going to talk a little bit about Canales later on in the show. I thought that what the game plan was this week looked more like the game plan that would have rolled out regardless who was under center. And for me, that is a giant development, because the three of us have talked for weeks now that I stand by this, man. Like, I still don't feel confident that the plan was always to have Bryce Young playing and that the plan was for him to be the starting quarterback of this team. I don't feel confident about that. What I think is that Bryce Young has left them no choice. And I'll be honest, man, I almost like that even more. Like, we talk about like dangling the carrot and that being the motivation. I don't know, man. Maybe Bryce motivated Dave Canales into saying, I need to speed up my crap here and stop playing so coy with this 23-year-old, very talented but small kid that maybe I don't necessarily see how I can work out with this. But he made him. He told him, look, trust me, do this. There is an abundance of trust being developed amongst this team, whether it's with the coaching staff, whether it's with the young playmakers, the rookie receivers, the rookie tight end. Glad Jatavion Sanders avoided a massive injury. There is just a lot going on here that is starting to click. And Bryce Young is the engine in the middle of it that's kind of pushing out the power to where it needs to be to keep this thing rolling. And I'm absolutely thrilled about it. I would be lying if I said that I had some sort of unwavering belief in Bryce Young to make it out of his predicament here in Carolina. I was extremely high on Bryce in the pre-draft. I was extremely defensive and believed in him all of last year in his rookie season. Those first two games, man, it made me question what was going on with Bryce Young. And I'm just being completely honest about it. What I've seen since then is a kid that is starting to remember who he is. Not who he was, who he is. This is still who Bryce Young is. Bryce Young is a winner. Bryce Young is a gamer. And Bryce Young can make NFL throws. And we saw it all on Sunday.
And real quick before you go, Curtis, just to Ricky reminded me to say this. I think it's abundantly clear that whatever Dave Canales is preaching in that locker room, that this team is beginning to buy in. I think that they trust in their head coach, whether it be that he's a player's coach or they believe in the system or whatever it is. I think it's clear that this team believes in whatever he's telling them. And for all the things that we've given Dave Canales, the hay we've given him, which has been rightfully earned up to this point with his lack of promises that he's kept. But I think as far as the locker room goes, he's got those guys in his hands, and he is preaching, this is what we're going to do. It's going to work if you buy in, and it almost did versus the Super Bowl champs. So I think he deserves a little credit there.
Absolutely. Agreed.
Yeah, and to Ricky's train comment, Bryce Young's the conductor right now, and he's leading the way for them, and he's done it over the last couple of weeks. Kind of reiterating what Bryson said, his best game as a pro, hands down. This tops the Green Bay game. The way he handled pressure, the way he made big time throws, even when they weren't completed. You guys talked about the Tommy Tremble drop. We had the David Moore drop that even you didn't even think it was possible to be completed. And he's still, I mean, it still dropped down into his hands. He obviously didn't catch it in the end zone. You have the Xavier Legette pass that was right in the bucket. We'll talk about that a little bit later in his text to Bryce Young. But he had pinpoint accuracy in this game, and those were big time throws. These weren't little dump offs. So he had one hell of a game, and he didn't turn the ball over. He was mistake free in this game. And he used the entire field with his throws. And there were layered throws against a top 5 defense, which was outstanding. I wanted to bring up a tweet I had a couple days ago, and I know Bryson had something very similar, and that was I give credit to Dave Canales for – I'm going to say David Tepper there because I'm one of the ones that thought –
is that a Freudian slip, man?
With the benching of Bryce. But I will say this. Would we be here if it wasn't for the accident? Like, let's be real. Let's not lie to ourselves. I don't think we would be. So, to that fault, I don't give Canales credit for that because I feel like it was just dumb luck that this came along. And then, like Ricky said, Bryce Young is proving to Canales that you can't go back to Dalton. I'm going to do whatever I can to make sure you never go back to him. So, credit goes to Bryce Young. I mean, the guy, it's been a rough year. Number 1 pick. The guy who was picked after you had an outstanding season, one of the best ever as a rookie last year. You come into this season with your second head coach, your third play caller. You start off, you don't even get preseason reps. Then you come in, you struggle your first 2 games. You get benched for a 36-year-old QB at the time. He wins 1 game against a 2-9 Raiders team and then starts for another 3 or 4 games before you get thrown back in. Mind you, he had a 93-yard passing game the week before his car accident, and they still were going to start him. And then the car accident happens, and here we are with Bryce Young. So hats off to Bryce. He's handled it like a pro, like he should have, and he is proving why right now the Carolina Panthers took him with the number 1 overall pick. So just kudos to him. He deserves all the credit in the world for that.
When you say the thing about Canales and the car accident, right, and how that kind of just like we fell into this situation, because you and I, Curtis, we're very much on the same page with that. I think that is just kind of the way that those events unfolded. But where I'll say that I'm giving Canales the most credit in this situation, like where I think he deserves the most like applause for how he's done it, is that this game, when he had a real opportunity to try to almost clam up a little bit again and be like, look, man, I had to protect Bryce, or I didn't feel comfortable about having this guy that I didn't even really feel confident starting this game, right? He wouldn't have been my guy of choice. But instead of doing that, he did trust this situation. And now I don't know if it's a 100% I trust Bryce Young and I'm going to let him do what he does, or if it's a I've got to find out. And this is the opportunity to find out. Because if Bryce does struggle mightily, I have every ammunition I need to pull him and get back to what my plan was. But why not balls to the wall, throw everything against the wall and see what sticks, right? And what happened was Bryce Young was sticking everything to the damn wall. I wish the wall, Xavier Legette, David Moore, and Tommy Tremble had caught a few more of the things that he was throwing at it. But in all reality, man, like Dave Canales and Bryce Young seem to really be forming a symbiotic, beneficial relationship with each other. And regardless how it started, I'm all for it now. The only thing I'm looking for, man, is sustained progress, right? No more flashes in the pan, no more little sizzles. Make it work and keep it working so that we realize we've got an answer at both positions, head coach and quarterback.
Yeah,
100%.
Yeah, and that's a fair point. But I think also if he were to struggle, maybe a game here or there, I think it's important to continue to back him, this coaching staff, and he's put together 3 good games in a row. And like each game was a step forward, like a higher level of play than the prior one. So I think it's natural in the NFL for quarterbacks to struggle every now and then. Patrick Mahomes struggles every now and then. But I think, I would really like this coaching staff to back him in those situations, and I'm not confident that they will. But that was a note I wanted to say to that. But one thing I wanted to mention, I did watch part of JT O'Sullivan's quarterback school of Bryce Young, and when you go back and look at the tape, like there's not when he's in the pocket, like his footwork isn't much different. He's still throwing off his toes, but there's like one thing that's different, and that's his confidence. He is confident again. He is 100%. Same formation, same throwing motion, same throwing off the tippy toes, same pitter pattering in the pocket with his feet, but he's just throwing with confidence, and it's resulting in completed passes and accurate passes. So I would like to, say that this is what we thought was lacking from Bryce Young, and it turns out that's probably right. And he seems to have found that confidence.
So yeah, I think Curtis, confidence is the big thing.
Yeah, and Curtis, before we get into this super chat, which is incredible, by the way, Wesley, before we do that, let me say to Bryce's point, though, about like the footwork and stuff, and I haven't watched the quarterback school thing yet, but one thing that I noticed, Bryson and Curtis, and I also had a question follow-up from what Bryson said about standing behind Bryce, but I saw a real intent with the way that he got to the back of his drops, especially in shotgun, when he recognized pressure coming. Like, he got back way quicker to the point where he could make his firm throwing base and have his back foot planted to get that throw off, even if it was off of his toes, even if it was with a little bit of a jump action. He got to his point at a much quicker pace without that lackadaisical kind of like, I can't really repeat this because I don't know exactly what I just did mechanically with my footwork, right? Like, he actually had intent. And if you go back to his Alabama tape, man, it's one of the things that I loved about him, and it's one of the reasons that I believed him being able to operate in an NFL offense, whether it was in a shotgun under center with the tall linemen that, magically grew, 1.5 feet since SEC to NFL, because Bryce is already throwing with 6'5" linemen. But it's one of the reasons I didn't worry about him not being able to see the middle of the field, is that he got back to that depth so quickly, a lot like what Drew Brees did. And that's where you got those comparisons about Drew Brees. Look how quickly Drew Brees got to the back of his drop and was able to process. When he got back quicker, he was able to use that super microchip inside of his brain. And that's what we saw, I think, in Carolina. The follow-up question I wanted to ask, too, do you think that they need to be more vocal in their support with Bryce Young if he has a bad game, or even right now going into the next few weeks? Do you think they need to just say, look, man, this is our quarterback? And I'm not saying commit, because I don't want to get into this whole thing again, right? But do you want to hear more vocal confirming support from this coaching staff?
Yeah, I don't see why you wouldn't. I mean, Dave Canales made the statement, he's showing us with his play on the field. And is Bryce Young starting next week? Absolutely. I mean, show your support for him. I mean, he is going in week again and continuing to improve. Show him some support. Be vocal about it. I have no qualms with doing that, but it sounds like, and it feels like, that this coaching staff does at this point in their relationship.
Before we get to Wesley's comment here too, I just want to quickly say, I think too, Bryce Young's trust within this offensive line has grown immensely over these last couple of weeks, and I think that has helped him in his pocket presence. And to Ricky's point about him getting back to his getting back in his drop quicker, he also faced a ton of blitzes this week, and I don't have the numbers on him, but they blitzed the hell out of him, and he had his best game against the blitz, and he trusted his throws and was decisive with it. We talk about that speed up clock, that the 2.7 or whatever Canales wanted the start of the year, and you see Bryce, speeding things up, which is really good. But let's get to Wesley Carey. That's enough. I mean, $99, $100, we'll call it $100. We appreciate it. Wesley Carrier, he says, front office youth brought in this year looks good, more picks than years past. What do we have to look forward to as fans? We've had hope, but no direction. Ricky needs a raise.
Hey, will you send that to my other bosses too, Wesley? Will you just tell everyone that I'm even a remote associated with, I need a raise. No, but I appreciate that. That's crazy, man. That is super generous, man. Thank you very much. The number, Curtis, that you were talking about, 40% of the time blitzed. He was 11 of 14 on those passes for 123 yards and a touchdown, including a season high 9.6 yards per attempt. So,
Fantastic.
Yeah, that's Steve Spagnuolo blitzing. And it was still these exotic looks. It was this really good drawn up pressure, creative pressure, and Bryce answered it. Wesley, I'm going to have a nice big swig of this thing here for you.
Cheers to Wesley.
Thank you so much, Wesley.
Thank you.
Too kind, man.
And as far as what he says,
maybe
too,
Ricky, he can give you his best Panthers growl right now.
Really going to put me on the spot? I mean, it's $100, so I feel like if I don't do it, he didn't get his money worth. Not terrible, right? It could be worse.
Good. That's good.
When he says, "What do we have to look forward to as fans?" Right? We've had hope but no direction. I love that too because he's right, man. What Dan Morgan has done with this rookie class, and now what we're seeing from this developmental coach that we have been told he's developmental, but we haven't seen it come to fruition. All of a sudden, we're starting to see some development on multiple fronts too, man. I know we like to talk about Bryce Young the most right now, especially after that game. That was a crazy good game, right? But there are things happening throughout that team that are just really encouraging, man. The offensive line is playing really well together. And I know that Dave Canales isn't sitting there with them one-on-one on the field and giving them coaching points, right? But Dave Canales built the staff. Dave Canales trusts the coaches that he hired, and he hired them with a purpose, right? It's kind of like the opposite of what they did last year. They went and they told Dave Canales, form your family coaching tree, right? Like, we want this thing to be a cohesive, aligned unit. And they all have the same coaching points. They all have the same objectives, and it's working, man. So I'm with Wesley 100%. I've got a lot of hope, and we actually have a little bit of direction, I think, right now.
And to your point, Ricky, I think it's belief. It's belief not only in the system, the staff, and the players. There is belief growing within this locker room that these guys believe they can go toe-to-toe with some of the best teams in the league, and they proved that this past week. And I think that's key down the stretch and going into next season of what they can really build within this roster and this coaching staff. So that's great to see. Let's talk about we talked about Canales a little bit, but let's get into that. Bryson mentioned it off the top. The scheme, the play calling of Dave Canales in this game. I tweeted this out, I think, a couple days before the game. I said, I think this game this weekend is just as big for Dave Canales as much as it is for Bryce Young. How does he call the game offensively against the defending Super Bowl champs? I hope he doesn't hold back. I don't think he held back. I think this was a defining moment for Dave Canales as a play caller, and I thought he called an outstanding game. Now, you look at our Twitter, I know I was bitching during that game about running the ball a little bit, but I thought he did outstanding down the stretch. And to get them to go in and tie that game up with 1:40. Now, would we have wanted a little bit more time off the clock and give, a little less time for Mahomes to work? Of course we would. But for them to come back and tie that game when you're 3-8 against a 9-1 team or a 10-1 team, it was, you can't complain much about it. He did a really good job. And I know the run game wasn't there. Still put up 50-some yards. But he called a very good game and gave Bryce opportunities that we complained about, some deep passes, some layered throws, and he schemed guys open. Go look at the play with Adam Thielen that he had on, I think it was on a third down early in the game. It was wide open. Adam Thielen, I think, got like a 25-yard gain on it. That was all Canales. That was a hell of a schemed-up play. Go watch it on the QB school too. He broke it down.
Talking about like that little slip delay screen or whatever, where Adam was blocking in line and then he slipped out. Man, gorgeous play design, wasn't it?
Beautiful.
And Bryson, you brought up the running game earlier, right? About wanting like him to have done maybe a little bit more with that or stayed committed to it a little bit more. And Curtis, you just talked about it. Do you know what's the most interesting thing about it too? When I was looking into this and like kind of like doing my film and research for articles and stuff, first half was egregious. I think it was like 7 yards rushing or something like that is what they totaled on, I think, 5 carries. Chuba still finished with a yards per carry of 3.6. The Chiefs give up 3.1. Like, that's the really funny thing when you think about this, is that you're right. If they had been able to get even a sliver more going in that first half, it could have been one of the most successful rushing attacks that the Chiefs had faced. It was already one of the better passing performances against the Kansas City Chiefs, right? And now you're talking about it could have been a good rushing performance as well. Jonathan Brooks not being involved didn't bother me too much, because I think, and I want him to be involved, man. I want so badly for Jonathan Brooks to be more involved. But there wasn't a great opportunity to try to get him going, right? They didn't really focus it on Chuba, and he already said Chuba was a starting point. You knew that he had to get Chuba going first. And once Chuba did, you saw Brooks come in that second half. We didn't see him at all in the first half, did we?
No.
I don't think we did.
I don't think so.
And so I think that once they started to establish a little bit of even possibility on the ground, that he was like, all right, let's get him in there and let's see what he does, right? I don't know, man. I'm very excited to see what they do against Tampa now. This is a revenge game for Canales, and he's coming off of maybe his best called game as a play caller and head coach.
I thought it was interesting about Brooks. They brought him in the final drive. The drive they scored the tie. He was the featured back on the start of that drive, and I'm like, oh, all right. Like, are we going to see some wrinkles here? Now, obviously, I think he came out a couple plays later, and Chuba slid right back in there, and then he, I think he was the one who scored at the end there, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Or am I mistake?
Yep.
Yeah, he was the one who. But yeah, like I was like, oh, all right, we're going to throw another wrinkle in here right at the end when the game is really on the line. But yeah, I would like to see Brooks a little bit more. I honestly thought we were going to see him a little bit more than we did in that game, because you're right. I don't think he saw the field the first half, but I think he's going to be eased in here, and I mean, deservedly so. What, Chuba's got top 5 yards in the league right now. Like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it type thing. So he'll get eased in there. He'll get his time, and he's a hell of a pass catcher. When they start getting those opportunities, you're really going to see this guy work. And he's just going to add a whole nother layer to this team. But Bryson, Canales, what'd you think of his play calling and his scheme?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the play I was going to highlight with the Adam Thielen. It was 3rd and 1, fake screen to Jatavion Sanders. Adam Thielen's blocking, and he squirts out and he's open, wide open. That's a manufactured play, and it worked to the best of its ability. And even towards the end, Adam Thielen didn't go out of bounds. He fought for extra yards, and it was a great play all around. I think Canales, in terms of the passing game, really called his best game of the season, without a doubt. I think Ricky mentioned it. He was finally took the training wheels off of Bryce Young and was like, I'm just gonna call this and we'll see what happens. I feel like it was his mindset, and Bryce Young handled business. He faced a ton of pressure, and even with dudes in his face, got the ball off. The play to Jatavion Sanders on the sideline where he just threw it up for a jump ball. I mean, even if he wasn't pressured and he had a clean pocket, like, that throw was so perfect to Jatavion Sanders. It was like almost a clean, like, you would think he threw it from a clean pocket, but he had a defensive lineman essentially hitting him when he was throwing. I think, continuing to include these deep shots in these games, and you come away with a couple drops. You would love for Xavier Legette to catch the one deep ball that he threw him, and it was dropped. You couldn't have handed it to him any better. He's Curtis mentioned, we're going to get into it later about the text message he sent to Bryce, but overall, I was pleased with what I saw. I would have loved to have seen a little more commitment to the run game. I think that's just in my DNA, but the passing game was working, so I'm not extremely upset. But I think moving forward, it is important to get both of those running backs involved, Chuba Hubbard and Jonathan Brooks, because that's only going to take pressure off of Bryce, and it's going to open things up in the passing game. And I think Canales knows that. But you were going against arguably the best quarterback to ever play the game of football, and they did what they had to do, and fortunately came up short. But it was a hell of a game. Panthers fans humming off of a loss in a game that we thought we didn't have a chance in, and they tied it with 1:40 left, and you should have heard me screaming at my house, man. I live in a townhouse, so sure my neighbors thought that something was happening. I'm surprised the police didn't get called, but I was happy, and moving forward, I'm excited to see what Dave Canales continues to implement in this offense, because I think he is, as well as Bryce, gaining confidence in his ability in the plays that he's calling. Because the play with Adam Thielen, I'm not sure if he calls that 5-6 weeks ago, and he just, I don't know, calls a screen pass to Miles Sanders or whatever, one of those runs out of the flat to Sanders. I know Sanders wasn't playing, but the same thing with Chuba or whatever. So I think he's gaining confidence as well, and I think it's going to continue to look better on the field.
Ricky, I got a two-part question for you. What did you think of David Moore's emergence in this game? And are you concerned at all with Thielen back in the fold and with Moore's connection with Bryce that Coker is going to be limited as he comes back from injury?
Well, so for David Moore's emergence, I think that that's kind of just the reason why he was on this roster. I remember when he made the 53 and a lot of people were saying, like, I don't really understand it. It's for this reason, is that when you have the young guys that you're relying on, if they're not able to go, or if they're having a downtime, or if they are injured, having a veteran that can come in that has success in the system allows you to have a kind of seamless transition for whoever the quarterback is, but especially Bryce Young. Now, Bryce Young worked with David Moore a pretty decent amount in training camp. I remember the connection with David Moore was there in the deep ball in training camp, more so than any other receiver on the roster in training camp. I mean, of all of them, man, more than Deontay Johnson, more than Adam Thielen, more than Xavier Legette. Jalen Coker was kind of an afterthought as far as like first team reps in training camp, so you didn't really get to see that. But David Moore is a proven receiver, man, in the NFL. And he's got his drop issues, but he is a route runner. He's not a speed demon, but he's a technician much in the similar way that Adam Thielen is. And, against that Kansas City defense, we talked a lot about how the tight end is a position that can find success, right? A lot of that is finding the soft spots and being where you're supposed to be in timing against that defense, right? That's kind of what David Moore was able to do. And the anticipation throws that Bryce hit him on shows you a real rapport, because some of the throws that we saw Bryce missing on early on these, like this 4-game stretch that he's on right now, where he's looked like a much more competent and confident quarterback, we saw him slightly overthrowing Jalen Coker. We saw him slightly overshooting Xavier Legette on relatively similar routes, right? At least as far as like depth of target. And what it shows is that he knows what David Moore is going to be doing, and he trusts him to get there. That's invaluable, man. Now, will that take away from Jalen Coker when he comes back or limit how much he's used? I don't think so, but I think that that's also because I didn't see Jalen Coker getting 95% of the snaps either, right? Like, Jalen Coker is going to play mainly the slot, and that is what Adam Thielen does. Jalen Coker can play outside, but right now I would say that they probably trust David Moore more to do that. And sorry for the more there. That sounded really stupid when I said it. They have a higher trust in David Moore there. And I don't think that that's a problem for Jalen Coker. I know how much us as the fan base are excited about Jalen Coker, and I am personally one of them as well. But he is an undrafted free agent rookie. If he can take an easier approach, especially coming off of a quad injury that popped up in the middle of the week and caused him to miss this game, I don't need him to be thrust back in and be told to play 75, 80% of the snaps, because more time off or bad performance is going to hurt him more than seeing what he can do in an offense when there's other competent players. Because going into next year, man, do we really want him to be our wide receiver too? I mean, like, genuinely asking, like, I hope he could be that, because I like Jalen Coker. But if that's your second best receiver, I think that your receiving room is still needing some help. So Coker may end up being a really good wide receiver 3 in his career, or wide receiver 2 at some point. But he's a complimentary player, in my opinion. And complimentary players should also be very comfortable still getting theirs in a reduced role.
Let's talk about Xavier Legette, because Bryson touched on it. And most of us, I'm sure, have seen this by now. But he had the drop late in the game. And he said he texted Bryce after, I think, Sunday night, saying he couldn't have placed the ball any better, and he's going to make that play next time. Bryson, I'll ask you, are you concerned with the drops with Legette?
No, I'm not. Excuse me. I I think this is part of growth, man. He's a rookie in this league. There were concerns surrounding a lot of areas of his game. We thought that he was going to struggle with his route running. He's actually been pretty refined at that up to this point in the league. So I think, I remember DJ Moore's rookie year. He had a couple drop balls. He had a fumbling issue early on in his career. Was able to get past it. Deontay Johnson early in his career dropped a lot of balls and then got past it. I think this is just part of him gaining familiarity with Bryce in the style of ball that he throws and just growing as a wide receiver. And I think that, moving forward, he's going to get better. I love his accountability that he showed with that text message to Bryce, and he knows he has to be better. I think he has the wherewithal to become that wide receiver that we drafted him to be. He's got the drive. He's got the dog mentality in regards to being able to become that wide receiver one, possibly, that Carolina took him in the first round to be. So I'm not concerned. I mean, obviously it's upsetting in games when he drops a beautiful deep shot from Bryce that would have continued to add to Bryce's great day. But I think moving forward, he's going to be better, and I'm not overly concerned at this point.
Ricky?
For me, man, one of the questions I have about Xavier Legette's drops are, remember the injury, the wrist hand injury that they said that he's dealing with right now, that is an injury that has lingered with him for a few years through college. And they said that he's likely to have surgery on that in the offseason to just go ahead and kind of repair it. I wonder if that has anything to do with like the just functional strength of his hands or wrist. And this is complete speculation, right? But we know that Xavier Legette has good hands. We know that one of his best traits in college, or at least especially in his breakout season in college, was his ability to go up, high point a ball, and play through contact to bring it down, right? What I've noticed on some of these drops, now not the one this week, man, that was, he handed it to you. You know what I mean? Like, he came over, shook your hand, and gave you the game ball, basically, right there. You got to take that thing and go. But a couple of the other ones, there has been contact immediately at the catch point. And I wonder if he's not able to really secure that catch. Now, this one this week, he was trying to catch it with his forearms and his biceps. Get your hands there, man. You know what I mean? You got these big, strong mitts, man. Use them. Like, do that. But those other ones, man, I mean, that one, what was it? The ridiculous play that the defender just took it right out of his hand. I've never seen a defender make that kind of play. You wouldn't think that Xavier Legette would be the one that got, Peter Pan for his first thing, is Robin Hood for his ball out of his own hands right there. I just can't help but wonder if that's playing a part. And that's not to make an excuse for him. I think that some of it's probably focus, some of it's still technique, and just getting acclimated to the game. Am I concerned about the overall outlook of that? Not exponentially, not to like extenuating circumstances, but do I have pause about it? Yeah. The reason that I have pause about it is because I've seen a lot of our rookie wide receivers have issues with drops and have issues with awareness. And I'm not saying he's the same player. I don't think he is at all. He showed a lot of stuff on that field on Sunday that won't show up in the stat box. And it's impressive and it's encouraging and it shows progression for him as an individual player. But no matter what you can do in route running that you've improved upon, no matter what you can do with a more expansive release package at the line of scrimmage, no matter how you could beat Trent McDuffie on press man coverage when everyone says you can't beat man coverage and you did it to one of the best receivers in the league, right? It doesn't matter if you don't catch the ball. So, no, man, I'm not concerned to the point where I'm down on it. I'm concerned simply from the point of I don't want to see it because I'm a Panthers fan and I like Xavier Legette.
Yeah, and I think what's good about, not saying the drops are good, but what's good about this all is when he did text Bryce Young, I think Young kind of responded and said, I think you had a really good role at that X position, playing it full time in that first game against a really good defense, and just his confidence of him. I think the more opportunities he gets, and I do believe he's a man of his word. I do think if they throw that ball to him again, he's going to make that play. So, like both of you have said, I'm not overly concerned. I was looking at some stats in college early in his season last year at South Carolina. He had the most targets without a drop among receivers, with 38 targets without a drop early in that season last year. So I don't think this has been an issue. I don't know what his drops were last year. If someone in the chat wants to pull it up, or one of you guys, just to see what it is. But it sounds like, and Ricky, you make a good point. And I know it's pure speculation, but that could possibly be a reason why, with the wrist and hand injuries. So just something to look at. I just wanted to bring it up because I know he's had, I think, like a drop in the last like I think as many games as Bryce has been playing, as back at starter. So I just wanted to bring that up because I know Coker's had some issues too. And then we had David Moore this weekend, and God forbid that awful tight end room besides Zero and Tommy Tremble. I had to bring that up. I had to harp on the tight ends because they all suck but Zero. So prayers up for JT. I didn't even get to say that yet. I hope he comes back stronger than ever because he's one hell of a player.
I do like what you said, though, about the way that Bryce responded to that text, too, though, right? I don't know if this was on the docket to talk about later, but the report about the speech that Bryce Young gave in the locker room after the game, it was from all accounts, right? They said that Bryce literally changed the tone of his voice. Like, it wasn't even the quiet, calm speaking Bryce Young. He literally hit like a different octave to talk to these dudes and explain to them that, hey, this like cautious optimism that we feel about losing this game, we don't even need to feel that, guys. We need to be winning these games. We can win these football games. That's who we are. That is something that I think fans have questioned and desired from Bryce Young, was some sort of vocal participation as a leader. And okay, it's not on the field. I don't care, man. It's not a peep show. We're talking about the NFL. I don't have to see it. You know what I mean? Like, that's not what I need. I just need to know that it exists and that it's going on. Like, Bryce Young being the guy commanding that locker room and having them buy into it. We had a comment earlier. I believe it was Amy or Aries Claire said, what I saw was a team with Bryce at the helm that had found something worth fighting for. And in turn, they produced a game that gave fans something to believe in. Perfect. I mean, that's a terrific, astute tweet, in my opinion, because I think that that's exactly what you saw. And it's not just rallying around Bryce Young, but that leadership extended to Xavier Legette when Xavier expressed his like sincere disappointment with himself. And you know what? I bet you Bryce Young can empathize better than almost any other player about being really hard on himself in a rookie year where he's shown promises, but sometimes the negative things are getting way more publicity than the promise that he shows. The margin of error for young players in Carolina the last 5 years has been ridiculously thin. And that goes for Xavier Legette now too, especially as wide receiver one playing the X way earlier than I think that there was intention to do. But not only has he earned that, but he's going to do well in it, I think. And this kind of like leadership and camaraderie and comfort from his quarterback, Canales has to understand that too. That's part of why you commit to him, because you're committing to everybody else in that locker room that when you need something, you go to him. You go to 9. That's your guy too. That's our guy. That's your guy. That's the guy. And that's what I want to see from Bryce Young going forward. And I think that that's exactly what we're starting to see.
All right, let's talk about defense here. Whole other side of the field going up against Mahomes and their offense. I know Mahomes had struggled at points in this year, double-digit picks, but he's still Patrick Mahomes. He still makes plays. They still have playmakers on that side of the ball. But defense, 5 sacks. Did we think we'd ever see that this year? 5 sacks in a game? But let's talk about it. There were some good things the defense did. There were some not so good things the defense did. I know I have a hit list out for 23 because he was god-awful in this game. I don't know if anyone else saw him out there, but that number is cursed. He looked like shit. I don't know why Dan Morgan saw something in this guy, because he does not have it. And I've seen that the past couple of weeks, and I know people have defended him the past couple of weeks. from what I've seen the past couple of weeks, he's being targeted on third down, and they're converting on third down, throwing against him. And if you saw the effort he had on the play that Patrick Mahomes scrambled for 30 yards to set up them for a field goal, he looked lost. His effort was shit. Xavier Woods' effort was shit on that play. It looked like he kind of let up before Mahomes ran it for 30 plus. So that nickel spot is an issue. They got rid of Troy Hill. I get it. He had some struggles too in that Atlanta game. But, man, I'll tell you what, I'd rather have Troy Hill right now in coverage.
Yeah, I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it, man. 23's been struggling. Dane Jackson has not played up to the level that I think Dan Morgan believed he could. I don't know if Dan Morgan foresaw him as the nickel corner in Carolina, probably more of the two on the outside, but, it is what it is at this point. Mike Jackson's played at a decent level throughout his time in Carolina. I thought he had a good game, but yeah, 23 struggling, and they're gonna have to figure out that nickel spot, whether it's giving young guys chances or, excuse me, my voice might be going. I don't know what's going on, but giving young guys chances or just continuing to hope that 23 gets better. I don't know what the answer is there, but it's definitely an area of concern. And even in this game, speaking of the defense as a whole, like J.C. Horn kind of struggled in this game, whether it's the holding penalties that happened. I feel like once a drive versus him, the refs were calling some very ticky-tack holding penalties versus 8. And then, a couple of pass plays where it seems like 8 was given a little bit of cushion and Mahomes took advantage of it.
What do you think, Bryson? You have a better perspective on penalties than we do. We don't get to see much in the stadium. If you catch it live, you catch it live. If you don't, it's lost pretty much. What did you think of his penalties? Were they ticky-tacky? That's what I saw at the stadium, but I don't know what it was like on TV.
His last one, his last holding penalty, there was nothing there. I mean, that could be called every single play in the NFL, and they threw the flag on it. I think his first 2, I believe he had 3. His first 2 were, they were holding. It was not a terrible call. Again, it could probably be called on every play in the league versus corners playing, press man or whatever versus wide receivers. But, it was there. Something was there. But the third one was pretty much like a phantom call, a Chiefs flag. I think overall, the refs seem to favor. I hate being this way because it's, the typical fan thing to do is blame the refs when your team loses. But the refs seem to favor the Chiefs in this game in regards to giving them the benefit of the doubt and throwing the flags in their favor. But, towards the end when we needed the pass interference calls, they were throwing the flags in the Panthers' favor. So, it is what it is. You have to overcome those. And unfortunately, the defense really didn't a lot of the times in this game. But, to come away with 5 sacks, I think was awesome. DJ Wanham, Curtis, you might have to eat some crow on him, man. He is electric off the edge. He is electric.
Crow every week with that guy.
He is a problem.
I will season up a whole crow and throw it on an offset smoker for the way that I talked about that signing, because that seemed like it was going to hit. And I'm telling you what, dude, he's balling. So yeah, that's
he's making Clowney look better. He's making the whole entire defensive line look better.
That's right.
Teams are going to have to scheme for him because you leave him one-on-one, he's a threat to get home. He is a dog off the edge, and it's exciting to see that that addition. And it sucks so bad that we lost Derek Brown early on in the season, because if he was on this defensive line with Ashawn and Jadeveon Clowney and DJ Wanham, we might have some serious problems for opposing teams coming to playing against the Panthers, because we all know what Derek Brown poses for opposing offenses, and it's an issue. So, next year moving forward, and Clowney's under contract, Wanham's under contract. We'll see what happens with Clowney and his age, and if he wants to stay in Carolina or not. But I think that they definitely need to add to that position in regards to some youth. But for sure, I was excited to see the effort that the defensive line put on the field. There were a couple of times where Mahomes had a decent amount of time to throw the ball. He finds Noah Gray for however long of a touchdown Noah Gray had. I think he had 2 touchdowns.
Two tutties, yeah.
In this game, might be tied in 1 in Kansas City. I don't know. That might be a little bit of an argument. Taylor Swift might be switching sides soon, but overall, I mean, the defense, they're playing. We've said it 100 times on this episode. One of the best quarterbacks to ever play the position. They gave their team a chance at the end of the game. I mean, I can't ask much more from this defense, and that's honestly more than I expected from them. They gave up 30 points to the Chiefs, and they had a chance to win at the end of the game. So overall, yeah, they could have played better, but I'm not expecting much more from this defense moving forward.
Before Ricky goes, we gotta mention Wesley Carrier. He's on a zinger tonight. So getting a pick for Deontay and finessing Dallas, wink, extending Chuba. Where do y'all want to spend up for a blue chip free agent this offseason? Hashtag Curtis Wine Wednesdays. Curtis Wine Win Wednesdays. I didn't get much attraction on my tweet where I posted a video of me panning across the wine cellar there up in West Jefferson.
But I'm glad that Wesley picked up on it, though, man. Very good observing there. Wine Curtis is one of my favorite Curtises. I think it's tremendous. Yeah. I think he should dabble in all the natural wines. The blueberries, the oranges, the blackberries, whatever he's got. Santa Baby, if he's got a Valentine one, like Cupid's dirty little thing or something like that. Like, just really lean into it, man.
I did buy 2 bottles. They'll make an appearance here at some point. Cheers to Wesley.
Cheers to Wesley, and then we'll answer the question too.
Yes.
Go for it, Bryson.
Yeah, I'll take it. I'll take it first. Where do you want to spend for a blue chip free agent this offseason? I think it has to be on defense, obviously. The offensive line is good. Maybe a wide receiver, possibly like a T. Higgins, but I think you kind of target that in the draft. And there's a lot of holes in that defense. Question marks at linebacker with Shaq Thompson and his age and his injury history. Who's playing opposite of J.C. Horn? Is J.C. Horn under contract? Or is he extended or picked up that 5th-year option? I think I would go defensive line with the free agent blue chip, maybe D tackle, edge rusher, possibly a safety. I think focusing on the defense is what they need to do this offseason. I think that's what they're going to do because the offense overall, I think, is in pretty good shape moving forward with the young talent. And, of course, Chuba was extended and, they need to add someone to that wide receiver room, but the defense is the area that struggles week in and week out. And I think adding to that would be important.
Ricky, who would you?
Yeah, it's interesting. There are some defenders. I'm going through the list, just trying to make sure that I'm not missing anybody. Khalil Mack is going to be your premier guy, but he's 34 years old.
Reddick.
Hassan Reddick. But again, Hassan Reddick, man, he's 31. For Khalil Mack, I can understand it, right? Khalil Mack is a proven guy who year after year he produces. I'm not sure he leaves LA. I think that they like him there. Harbaugh likes to keep his guys in place too when he's got something that he likes. But then, there's defensive linemen too that I think could make some sense. You bring up T. Higgins, and T. Higgins is really interesting because if Xavier Legette progresses for the rest of the season at the X position, how does T fit with that? And is T in that kind of questionable fit? Now, and this isn't questioning what T. Higgins can bring on the field. Anyone that questions that, I think, has not watched T. Higgins play football. This is a very incredibly gifted wide receiver with a physical frame and a skill set that any NFL team, let alone an NFL team that struggles to score touchdowns, could greatly use. But I don't know that I would put a whole ton of money at the wide receiver in free agency, even though I would like to be completely honest. I wish that there was better free agent wide receivers in this class because I think that a veteran wide receiver with a skill set that is not on the roster would benefit everyone in that room. I think that drafting a rookie, again, is kind of that dart throw where you could struggle with that. I want to look and see what the cornerback situation is in free agency. I know that DJ Reed, I think, for the Jets is a possibility. Byron Murphy for the Vikings is a possibility. There's some guys, Mike Hilton, I think, for Cincinnati, their nickel corner. I would be very into the idea of signing a guy like Mike Hilton to a sizable deal to bring in a proven nickel, because we were just talking about the nickel conundrum here with Dane Jackson. I don't know what they're doing there, guys. Like, when they got rid of Troy Hill, they literally, again, their staff writer put out an article about Joe Smith-Wade and about how he was ready to take on this big role. And then Dave Canales spoke highly of him after his first game as a starter, taking over that role, about his aggression and about how he played smart and about how he was excited to see where he was headed. And then since then, he hadn't seen the field. Like, I don't think he's seen the field since week 9. And it's because they're trying to fit that square Dane Jackson peg into the round nickel back hole. And it's not working. I think that from what we have seen with them being willing to get rid of players quickly or move on from players quickly, if it's not fitting what they want done, they should heed their own advice here with that. I know that they're concerned about the contract they gave Dane Jackson. Who cares, man? Like, you drafted Joe Smith-Wade, play him. You got to figure out, because if you don't have a nickel in Cho, if he's not the answer either, that's a position you have to fill. You have got to prioritize that and fill it in draft or free agency. So that's where I would look at with free agency personally.
Yeah, and you got a guy like Caleb Farley that they, put some investment in with signing him to the actual roster too. So that's a guy. I went with wide receiver. I don't know if there's that edge position. I feel like a lot of those guys are aging, and I think there's some really good defenders in this draft they can go get at the top, and that top 10 pick, if that's where they land, where I'd go, or even in the interior D line. T. Higgins, Chris Godwin's a free agent, has some familiarity with Canales in Tampa Bay for that 1 year. So I don't know. I feel like that would be somewhat I target. And then I think corner's the obvious. They need to upgrade that room opposite J.C. Horn. I think Mike Jackson has played well, but is he a premier corner? No. And then the nickel spot is a question mark. No one knows what the hell they're going to do. And I'll tell you what, Mike Evans ain't going to play opposite J.C. Horn every play. They're going to move him inside, move him outside, move him against Mike Jackson. They'll move him inside against 23. He doesn't even get – I don't name him anymore. That's what I start doing. When I don't like you, I don't name you anymore. You get a number. So
that's bad.
So
that's bad.
So 23's on the list now. Yeah, they're going to go after him if he's starting this weekend. Bet your ass on it. I mean, every third down I throw his way. So they need to figure that position out pretty damn quick here because it's a major hole. Other thoughts defensively? What did you guys, Bryson, you mentioned J.C. Horn. Ricky, any other guys that kind of stuck out to you on the defensive side of the ball, good or bad?
I thought Josie Jewell had another nice game, man. I think that Josie Jewell, and I know that was going to make Bryson happy.
Say it.
No, but I wanted to see Bryson happy too, man. Look, I have my thoughts on, was he the best person that you could have signed? Probably not. But I also think that they missed out on the best person they could have signed in Patrick Queen. I think that they went for him, and I think that didn't work out. I think that the familiarity with Josie Jewell is starting to show. I think that you can see the benefit of having a veteran at that position as opposed to Trevin being the green dot in the huddle. And I think that has really turned a corner here a little bit, man. And I like what I see from Josie. I'm not saying that I would consider him a shoe-in to be any kind of long-term solution here in Carolina, but I don't feel bad about him being on the field. And I think that he has benefited this defense, especially with Shaq going down. I mean, we lost our veteran captain presence at the linebacker position, right? So, man, yeah, I think that Josie Jewell had a nice game. J.C. Horn, I don't know if I think he had a bad game or not. I think that some of the calls were a little ticky-tacky, to be honest. JC is a handsy player. I mean, that's just what he is, dude. He always has been. He was at South Carolina. And when refs call a game really tight like that, he tends to be on the wrong end of it. I still think though that you see him, the ability that he has, his support and run. The Dane Jackson play on the scramble with Pat Mahomes, I wanted to talk about that for a second because that's a pretty hotly debated thing right now about, is Pat kind of not dirty, that's the wrong term, but is Pat kind of like playing to the threat of, if you hit me, you're going to get a flag. So I'm going to start tunneling a little bit towards that sideline. On this specific play, I didn't see that personally. I didn't think that he was running towards the sideline looking like he was about to go out. I thought that he looked like he was just trying to create an angle and he was trying to gain yardage. Now, Pat Mahomes isn't a physical specimen when it comes to running the football. He's a little bit clunky out there, right? If you didn't know any better, you might think he was Andy Dalton sometimes, the way that he's running, like he's a 37-year-old with a little hitch in his giddy up, right? But he's shifty and he's creative. I think that he just knows that he can kind of slow down and change pace and scoot up a little bit. I think Dane Jackson and any defender here's the thing too, man. If you want to complain about that and you want to say, well, they were afraid about getting a penalty, maybe you should make Pat Mahomes afraid of doing it. Maybe you should deck him. Maybe you should take the 15 because guess what? He got an extra 13 on you anyways. Maybe put him on his ass and tell him, hey, look, I'm not going to be afraid of the ref, but I'm also not going to be afraid of you beating us and lining up Spencer Schrader or whatever that is to come in there and kick the game-winning field goal on us. We got the most accurate field goal kicker of all time in our bench, buddy. Like, we want to get little Eddie Money out there to kick us the game winner. We don't want to see Spence Schrader out here and Bank of America. So, yeah, look, put Pat Mahomes on his ass, man. If you don't like it, if you don't want the refs to be involved, then do your own thing.
Ricky, do you think he kind of hit the fake slide a little bit, the Kenny Pickett in college at Pittsburgh? Like that's the vibe
that's what
I
people
got
saying, right?
Yeah.
And I've seen him do something more like that. I've seen him do that in another game. I can't remember which one. It was this year. I've seen him do it in a couple games. There was one particularly this year where it looked like he was literally pulling up, right? Like he was going out of bounds and then looked like he was giving up and then kind of beelined forward. But again, man, I'll tell you, if his foot isn't out of bounds, hit him. Like, and that's not like advocating for hurting somebody by any stretch of the means. But when it's in the rule book that you can hit somebody who's in the game or in the field of play, put him on his ass, dude. Like make him think twice about trying to get cute. Pat Mahomes might be a big fan of donuts. We might find that out about him. He might really like cute stuff. And so if that's the case, man, make him think twice about it. Explain to him, man, you don't need that breakfast pastry. You need to get your ass out of bounds before you meet DJ Wanham, who's, a rippling 275 pounds that's coming at you full force, man. He'll lay you down. So I didn't see him doing the Kenny Pickett on this play, Bryson, but I have seen him do it before.
All right, we're going to leave it there. We're going to be back after a quick break. If you guys like what you're hearing, I think we got almost 485 listeners right now. We appreciate every one of you. If you guys like what you're hearing so far, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, and you can get us wherever you get your podcasts on pretty much every platform. We'll be back after this 30-second break. Exciting news, Panther fans. I'm thrilled to announce our partnership with BetStamp and Sign Up Expert, opening up an incredible opportunity for you to join sportsbooks in your area to get the best odds and new user offers. Head over to our dedicated page at signupexpert.com/Panthers to explore a selection of sportsbooks tailored to your region, each with unique offerings. If you're ready to take sports betting to the next level and show some love to Panthers on Tap, I highly recommend signing up for your next sportsbook through our Sign Up Expert link. All right, we're back now. Let's talk a minute here about the guy they claim before we get into the game this weekend. It's the cornerback. Sorry, the name was escaping me for a second here. The corner from Vikings. I don't even know if I want to pronounce his name. Caleb Evans, it looks like to me. Hopefully I'm not murdering that. They claimed him off waivers. He had started, I think, like 14 or 15 games for Minnesota. He was a fourth-round pick a couple of years ago for them. Maybe this is their answer for nickel. It's the timing is very interesting based off of how 23 played this past weekend. But from what you guys have gathered, I know it's early. But from what you gathered, any thoughts on the waiver claim?
I mean, I don't know a whole lot about the guy. I think he was cut for a reason, and maybe this is one of those low risk, high reward chances they're taking, like they did with Caleb Farley. It seems like he's got some physical traits that usually bode very well for NFL players, but kind of struggled in Minnesota behind some veteran players, and they decided to move on from him. So, I'm not mad at the addition, and maybe it turns out well for Carolina, but I'm also not counting on him to be that answer at the nickel position moving forward. I think you would rather just put Chow Smith Wade in and hope he figures things out. But yeah, I'm not super knowledgeable on his play and his abilities, but I do know that he has some physical traits that you would like to see in the corner position.
Yeah, Ricky, you said you saw some things you didn't like. What were they?
and I don't want to say that like I've done much research, man, but like anytime that your team signs somebody, and look, full disclosure, Caleb Evans was not on my radar remotely. Like I didn't look at this guy beforehand. I didn't look at him previously and look at him for a free agent possibility at any point. But once you sign him, you go and you do a little bit of like surface level looking, right? The first thing that stands out to me, though, 6'2", 198 pounds. That's not exactly a nickel frame, right? That's not your traditional nickel body frame. Looking at his snaps by position, he's played more outside corner by far than nickel alignment. So I think what I take from this is more special teams player and more maybe depth position or depth for the position than any kind of impact or contributions. I think that what we talked about earlier, that Cho Smith-Wade, that has to be your answer. It's either Dane Jackson or Cho Smith-Wade. I think that if you go another direction with that, you're pretty much saying that you don't believe in Cho, right? And that you have no interest in seeing anything else out of him because once again, man, I mean, you're not getting anything out of Dane Jackson that you should be scared to lose. So you play Cho or you play Dane and you live with the fact that you gave him a contract and you don't want to look silly on that. But a Caleb Evans, I think, is probably more of a special teams contributor. He did start a couple times. I think in 2023, I think that he got like 9 starts.
15.
And again, how many was it?
Yes, 15 starts.
That's for his career, right?
Last season, he had 15.
Oh, damn. See, I didn't even read that right then. But I know that looking at that, what I had seen is that his wide corner alignment was like almost 700 snaps that he played outside, and inside in the slot, it was less than 50. So if you're talking about that, I mean, I just don't think that you put another guy who hasn't played nickel and try to get him to play nickel when he isn't even really a terrific coverage player by the grading. I didn't watch him, so I'm not going to speak to it personally.
Yeah, just some of the clips I saw on Twitter. Again, these are just snippets. Saw a guy who got burnt a couple times on some double moves. Saw a guy who struggled early on with tackling from what I read from Vikings fans who watched him. There was some talk that maybe he didn't fit Brian Flores' defense in Minnesota. So maybe there is a fit there with Evero's system, which I'm curious to kind of see. I also saw someone said that he improved his tackling this year with a couple of plays he made on some screen passes early on in this season. I think he played in 7 games this year. I don't think he started, but he played. So just something to keep in mind, a new face. And we'll see if he can add anything. Like Ricky said, I think it'd probably be more special teams than anything. But I don't know what it is. Carolina likes to cut some of their sack leaders. Let's talk about that for a second. So they go out and they bring in Evans, and then the corresponding move is they waive Charles Harris, who has 3 sacks on the year, and who was picked up by the Eagles this afternoon off waivers. So I get it, DJ Wanham obviously playing well, but I'd like a guy like that maybe for depth at a position that doesn't have a lot of depth. So I don't know what their decision making is on this one, but any thoughts? Are you guys a little annoyed at all that Harris has been cut, or you really don't care?
No, it doesn't bother me. He was struggling in some of the coverages, and
is he 40?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
He has.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. There were a
Yeah.
couple plays this past week. I'm like, what the hell? Okay. All right.
Yeah.
He was struggling, and I mean, I don't know if he really added anything when he was on the field. The Eagles pick him up. Maybe he does with them. I don't know, but I wasn't upset about it. I think they're very pleased with Wanham, and I think rightfully so. Who's really added some juice to that defensive line, and yeah, maybe he's a good depth player, but they felt the need to add to the cornerback room, and he was the casualty. So I wasn't upset to see the cut. I know they have this running joke that if you're a sack leader for the Carolina Panthers, you're going to get cut, which has actually been true up to this point in the season. But I wasn't upset too much with the Charles Harris cut. I was with the Iku Leota, but not the Charles Harris.
I wonder too if they think Amari Barno is ready to be back as well. That's the other thought I had. Sorry, Ricky, go ahead.
No, that's a good one. I think that's probably at least in the back of their mind, right? Like, who knows how much that factored into it. They have a better idea than we do. Clearly, they're the ones seeing this guy and knowing where he is physically. I'm with Bryson that the departure of Charles Harris doesn't bother me all that much. When they had him matching up with the slot receiver at that outside linebacker position, I can't recall the game. I wish I could now. It was 2 games ago, I think. Maybe the New Orleans game. They had him match up as the match defender. And immediately I was like, well, this isn't going to go well. And it didn't. He got absolutely smoked. He essentially got pantsed on the field in front of everybody. I think that what he did is he served a role as a veteran presence on a defensive line, or at least a front seven, that was lacking that. And this guy did have production in his career, so he knew what it looked like to get a sack, where we had a lot of players that were playing valuable snaps and big minutes that literally didn't know what that looked like. So sometimes you just need somebody that has been there to kind of acclimate the rest of these young guys into that mindset, into the thought process of I could get a sack, right? And again, what we always talked about with DJ Wanham is that DJ Wanham was more of a cleanup artist. I think that what they needed was to see somebody kind of facilitate the pass rush that wasn't DJ Johnson, right? And if Jadeveon Clowney, if he wasn't playing, or if he was, being double teamed, do we have anybody else that could kind of set something up for these guys to clean up? And now that you have DJ Wanham not being the cleanup guy, but being the power that generates it, that is getting after it, and that is causing havoc and disruption, that makes Charles Harris wildly expendable. Like, there's nothing about him that you look at and say, well, we could be missing something. Now, the other thing is that we just saw Detroit Lions waive James Houston, their third-year player. His rookie year, I believe it was, in 2022, I think he had like 8 sacks. He hasn't seen the field very much this year, not very productive either. I think he's dealt with some injuries. I'm intrigued by the possibility. This is a guy who's, I think, like 25 years old or something like that. You got a guy that has 10 sacks-ish on his career, and he's only 25, 26 years old.
When
Maybe
was
take
he
a chance.
up?
I think he was 2022 when he was drafted.
Guess who was the D-line coach there then?
Right. Todd Wash, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So there's a little bit of familiarity there, right? The only thing that I'll say about him, he's a smaller build than what they seem to covet. I think he's like right around 6'2", 240, 245. I think he has a little bit of length, but if I remember correctly, and I'm trying to remember off the top of my head draft notes that I had on the guy, I don't think that he had elite composite length and size. That was always something that he had to kind of almost overcome. And I don't know that we value that very much in Evero's scheme. It seems like everybody they brought in at that edge position has been a much different physical build. So I wouldn't necessarily expect them to go that way, but that is something that if they opened up a position and all of a sudden they're looking at it and say, well, maybe Amari Barno is still a week or 2 away, take a flyer on him maybe, man, right?
He had 8 sacks in 7 games as a rookie. Take a flyer on him.
Take a flyer on him, right?
Got. And you had familiarity with him with Wash. I mean, I think it's a no-brainer at least to bring him in and see what he's got. I like that. All right, let's get into statistically speaking here. We'll talk about that. We do have our bets coming up. Stick around for that. Still trying to go 3 for 3. Went 2 for 3 last week. We'll touch on that a little bit. We got predictions. And then for you guys to think about, Bryce and Ricky, your favorite side dish for Thanksgiving. We'll end on that before we sign out for the holiday week.
Damn.
But let's get into let's get into
Look at you, man. You love to drop these little last minute things on us. This is 2 weeks in a row
it's
now.
a side dish. Chill out.
Hey, in the South, we take side dishes very seriously, bro.
All right. So let's get into statistically speaking. Let's start with I love this, Ricky. When I saw this, I
Steve the
love
Pirate, baby.
All right. Well, actually, before we get into this, I just want to shout out you for a second, because last week we had mentioned and you had showcased Steve Spagnuolo's defense and his blitzing ability and the different looks he brings. And we saw that on Sunday. So I feel like, folks, that maybe you think this, it's just numbers and these we're trying to preview things and let you guys into what you can expect going into this game. And that's why I think this segment that Ricky came up with is so important, because you get kind of a taste of what to expect the Bucs to do both on offense and defense as we go into the game, because we saw it this past week. They blitzed the hell out of Bryce Young, and the big question was, how is he going to respond in those situations? Obviously, he played pretty well. So, anyway, sorry, I thought I'd give you a little shout out there.
Yeah, and to add to that real quick, Ricky is like Michael Jordan in 1995 and 1996. The man doesn't miss. Okay, so listen to what he's listen to what he's telling you in these segments, because we've seen it week in and week out play out. So pay attention in these segments. Put your beer down and just listen for a minute.
All right, so we do have some Wesley does have some competition here in the super chat. So
I love his name, by the way.
Alex Nobody Show, $5. Stop everything and acknowledge Alex.
Alex, my man.
Emoji. Alex,
up,
we
Alex?
appreciate it.
I like the name. Look at that sharp profile picture he's got on there too, man.
Alex, I will
say,
Alex, I will say you are late to the party. Shame on you.
Yeah, what is this pickleball noise that I heard about? Get the hell out of here, man.
What are you, a 65-year-old man? Come on, dude.
People love that pickleball, man. Charlotte's a pickleball town. I tell you what, man. All right. Thank you for coming in, though, Alex, and thank you for the super chat. He lost his pickleball. Wasn't even worth it to go, bro. Come on, man. All right. Statistically speaking, let's get into this. That's Steve the Pirate. For anyone that's not familiar, you can go and watch the movie Dodgeball. He's Steve, Peter, whatever the guy's name is. This Tampa Bay offense, man, this offense is it's a dangerous one. They can score points. They can put up points in bunches. They could do it in a couple of different kinds of ways. 28.1 points per game. That's good for fourth in the league. 369.5 yards per game is the seventh best in the league. 241.5 of those yards come from passing yards per game, and that's a seventh best mark. 128.1 of those is the rushing yards per game, and that's 10th best. And that's interesting to me because, they said that Canales struggled so much with that rushing game out there in Tampa, and they came into the season with Rachaad White as their starting running back, and rookie Bucky Irving has taken over and has been a difference there, man. But it's not this inept offensive line at run blocking. They've got some real talented players up there, and that scheme is thriving right now in Tampa. Plus 0.1 expected points added per pass. That's fourth best. That's the efficiency mark once again. 0 flat unexpected points average or added per rush. That's 10th best. I know those make no sense sometimes when you look at it and you're like, so there's 0 expected points added per rushing attempt, and that's the 10th best. But what it means is that they're very often not getting stopped. It's not a detriment to their offense. When you average it out, they are not losing points by being on offense. They're not making life more difficult for them. It's an efficiency measure. 36 offensive touchdowns on the year. That's tied for third best in the league. So, I mean, that's something that you got to worry about. Now, we know that Evero is the bend, don't break defensive guru, essentially. So maybe that will be a big-time battle to watch, is our red zone defense, our ability to mitigate opportunities into field goals as opposed to touchdowns. 58.3% of the time they're throwing the ball, so they do favor the pass. That's the 11th most out of any offense in the NFL. Curtis, if I could get you to move those pictures for me. 41 rushes of 10-plus yards. That's tied for ninth. I believe that Bucky Irving is responsible for 15 of those. And the really funny thing is that I believe Baker Mayfield is responsible for 16 of those. So 31 of those come from Baker Mayfield and Bucky Irving. 3.33 yards after contact per attempt. That is fifth best in the league. That is, again, where Bucky Irving and even Rachaad White, to an extent, that is where they make their hay. They are shifty. They can break tackles. You have to get them to the ground. So I'm looking for no arm tackling. I want to see Josie wrapping up. I want to see Trevin read and react, get to the guy, and use that physicality. 1,754 team yards after catch. That is the best in the league. That is plus 336 greater team yards after catch over expected. That is second best in the league. So this is not necessarily an element that they were prolific in last year. And this is coming without Chris Godwin the last few weeks, right? Chris Godwin suffered the season-ending injury. Now, he was a big part of this, but Mike Evans was also on the shelf for 3 or 4 weeks. He's going to be back. I've got a little bit to talk about him, too. He's a menace for the Carolina Panthers, not our favorite guy to see. They have allowed 24 sacks. That is tied for 10th in the league. On 105 quarterback pressures, that's the second fewest. 24 passing touchdowns is the third most. And Baker Mayfield has a 104.1 passer rating. That is sixth best in the league. And I know Panthers fans are familiar with Baker Mayfield, but not 104.1 passer rating Baker Mayfield. So that is something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I'm Mike Evans, and I honestly wish I would have switched my bet, because the guy, every time he plays Carolina, puts up like 150 yards. It's ridiculous. The guy just shows out when he plays Carolina. Little shocked by the allowed sacks, to be totally honest with you. I thought they gave up a little bit more than what they do statistically. So that kind of surprises.
Tristan Wirfs, their left tackle, I think that he's the best pass blocking tackle and one of the better run blocking tackles in the league. I think he's tremendous.
But some of these other guys, and this is not slighting them, I don't know a lot about their team, is, these guards I have not heard of. Center I have, their right tackle I had, covered him a little bit in Wisconsin when he played in high school. But Tristan Wirfs is the real deal, and that offensive line is playing at a really good clip. I mean, hopefully, Clowney and Wanham can stack some, sacks together in this game this weekend, because I think that'll go a long way. And I do think Carolina, while I think Baker's undefeated against Carolina, he doesn't have a lot of passing yards against them. So if they can limit him and kind of know what he's doing, and obviously Dave Canales knowing the offense in and out, really, I know their scheme's different now, but I think that's going to benefit Carolina, and hopefully he can share some things with Evero and that defense that, can benefit them going up against this offense.
Bryson, can I pose a question to you? Because I mentioned that I had something I want to talk about with Mike Evans, and I know you have been a big JC fan, and we've talked about JC Horn a little bit earlier in this episode. So Mike Evans, for his career, has 102 receptions for 1,480 yards and 11 touchdowns in the 19 career games against the Carolina Panthers. Only 5 times in those 19 has he been held to under 45 yards receiving. 2 of them were his rookie season, 1 in his second NFL season, a random 1 in 2018, and then the last time we faced him last year in 2023. JC Horn has allowed 6 touchdowns already this season. Not exactly something that he's probably proud about, right? Are you nervous for that matchup, or do you think that this is one of those almost like what we saw with Bryce Young, right? Put him in a big situation and he shows up. Do you feel good, or are you a little bit nervous about this matchup?
Yeah, I mean, I'm nervous, man. Mike Evans, when the curtains close in his career, I believe is going to be a top 10 wide receiver in NFL history. When you talk about his production year in and year out, he is one of the most underrated guys at the wide receiver position that I can remember. He is prolific, no matter who his quarterback is that's been in Tampa, whether it's been Tom Brady or Jameis Winston or whoever it's been. He puts up numbers. He performs. He is an extremely good wide receiver, and I think Bucs fans are lucky to have him. But I think J.C. Horn is a competent, very good corner. And I don't, J.C. Horn hasn't been in the system a shadow guy. I think what Curtis mentioned earlier about them moving him around into the slot or opposite of where J.C. Horn is, I think they're going to do to take advantage of those opportunities versus Mike Jackson or whoever's playing nickel for Carolina. I think they're going to do. I am nervous about that because Mike Evans, was it the Benet Ben Wickery game where he just went for like 3,000 yards and 28 touchdowns versus us?
Like that on this show, man. That's crazy.
I mean, that was, I have PTSD from that game, man. It was bad, but yeah, I mean, that's concerning for sure. But I think if anybody in the NFL right now knows the weaknesses of Baker Mayfield, it is our head coach. So that is the thing that I'm taking into this game. The hope that I have in regards to them being able to qualm this offense that has put up very prolific numbers that you shared with us, Ricky. I was impressed to see the passing touchdowns, the sacks not allowed. I mean, I think a lot of that is attributed to Baker Mayfield's play up to this point in this year, which I love Baker Mayfield.
Yeah,
I loved him when he came to Carolina. Thought he was outstanding in the situation that he was in here. A hell of a team player. I like to cheer for him, even in Tampa, but not when he's playing for the Carolina Panthers. So I think, like I mentioned, if anybody in the NFL knows how to contain Baker Mayfield, it's our head coach. So we'll see if that plays out.
Ricky, I got a question for you.
Okay. Why
doesn't Carolina use JC to cover the number one wide receiver all game long? What is the reasoning behind not doing that?
Well, think about it this way, man. Like, if you change the basis of the scheme, right? Like, if you were to take him and start having him shadow, what do you do with the other side? You could play like a match zone type thing over there. But if you just have him running and you leave that left side open, if it's one-on-one, if they're just out there in 12 personnel or something like that, and you got JC and he leaves that entire side open up, what do you do over there on the rest of that left side if you're matched up, if you're in a match zone? You're messing up the entirety of your scheme to get one player going, where there may be more benefit from having everybody really confident and sure about their roles, about where they're supposed to be and what their responsibilities are, that closing off a side. And it's not like Revis Island, right? It's not necessarily like you say that when he's over there on that left side that no one is throwing to the left, but we have seen JC targeted exponentially less than Mike Jack, or whether it was CJ Henderson when they were together, right? I know Alex said his name earlier because Bryson mentioned Benet Ben Wickery, and they all just felt like saying dirty words at the same time, I guess. But it's something that we've seen that, like, I think that in certain situations, I would love to see Evero just say, third down, guess what? I'm going to take away the guy that I'm most worried about. But if you do that, offensive coordinators, if that's your game plan for a whole game, they also know that. So you're not doing anything sneaky by doing it, and they can scheme up, and they're going to scheme up. A good offensive coordinator is going to be able to do that. The differences in rules with the wide receivers and quarterbacks now, especially, you don't see a lot of people doing the shadow. Pat Surtain does it every now and then, but Pat Surtain doesn't do it 100% of a game. Like, that's not something that you see. Sauce Gardner is what everybody's favorite, right? Sauce Gardner isn't just shadowing everybody's number one. Sauce Gardner plays his responsibilities. He plays his zone too. We just play more off coverage, and that's why it looks more noticeable for JC Horn. is because he is a press man cover his entire college career. And he does have the skill set to be tremendous at that. But it also doesn't mean that he's not being like adequately used. I'm not going to say this is the best use of his talents, but we're not doing him a disservice by playing him in the role that he's playing, I don't think.
And maybe the league's getting away from that. I just feel like a few years ago, all the top corners were shadowing your best player and shutting them down. And now everyone's got track athletes, and it's hard to do that.
Yeah. And that's the thing, too, with all of the different motions and shifts and like the changing and the eye candy of what people are doing pre-snap. You're just asking for a lot of movement on the defense. So you're kind of negating some of the confusion possibilities by not having all of those moving pieces. You're not tipping your hand to the offense. They don't know what you're doing pre-snap if you don't show them, right? If you give them a look, especially the way that Evero disguises his coverages on the back end, that's one of his trademarks. Don't show what you're doing. The minute you start moving those players pre-snap, they know what you're doing. You know what I mean?
I got you. All right, let's move on. Let's go to the defense for the Bucs here.
All right, so for the defense, Steve the Pirate says that they allowed 24.8 points per game. That is 24th in the league. Now, this is our area, guys. Bryce Young just did it against Spagnuolo in that defense, that Chiefs defense. This is where we have a really good opportunity to see Bryce build for the first time, man. 376.2 yards per game allowed. That's 29th in the league. I believe the Carolina Panthers are 30th in the league, if that tells you anything. If you feel really poorly about the Carolina Panthers defense, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are right next to us in that ranking. 255.5 passing yards per game allowed. That's 29th. This is the easiest on paper matchup Bryce Young has faced this season. And he is getting it when he is playing with the highest level of confidence and trust in himself and his coaching staff. 120.7 rushing yards per game. That's 16th in the league. 6.4 passing yards per play. That's tied for 20th. So it doesn't even have to be the dink and dunk. I believe that Bryce averaged 7.5 yards per attempt last week against Kansas City. I think he can do that same thing. I think you keep going with that momentum. 4.7 rushing yards per play, tied for 22nd. Music to Chuba Hubbard's ears right there. And Jonathan Brooks, I think, gets an opportunity this week. 30 touchdowns allowed. That is tied for 22nd in the league. Here's the thing. The 61.1% of the time they are passed against. That is fourth most. That also speaks to their deficiency in the secondary. And I know that their offense is putting up points and forcing their opponents to really kind of keep up with them. But they also had a stretch early in the year where they did not have Antoine Winfield Jr., their prolific safety. He's back, and he has been balling since being back. So that is something to keep in mind, I think, when we look at that. Defensive keys, 32 sacks. That's tied for 9th in the league. You see I've got Vita Vea up there, number 50. He's got 6 sacks, and that's as a massive interior defensive lineman. I mean, this guy's like 365 pounds, and he gets after it. It is crazy. 159 quarterback pressures. That's 5th most in the league. That's a 34% quarterback pressure rate, 14th. 6.8% sack rate, 16th. Here's why those numbers are important to me and why I share them. I know that might seem like almost like tedious and like overkill to talk about the pressure rate and the sacks and then the sack rate. Opportunities. We just saw that they get thrown on 4th most in the league. That also means that you probably see about the 4th most opportunities, hence the 159 quarterback pressures at the 5th rate, to rush the passer, right? Anyone that is getting run on very often is not seeing as many pass rushing opportunities. That's where that sack rate, that percentage of sacks matters so much. And that quarterback pressure rate matters so much because that's per drop back. How are they getting after it? Not just quantity. It's not just volume. It's quality. And they are 14th and 16th. The 9th and 5th are nice metrics, but 14th and 16th is a little bit more indicative of where they are as a pass rush unit. 31 rushes of 10 plus yards allowed. That's tied for 8th. 2.11 yards before contact per rush allowed. That's 30th. So there's a area to exploit right there. Get those power runs going. Get that outside zone. Get Robert Hunt and Damian Lewis pulling like they have all year. Cade Mays, man, you got a task with Vita Vea. Just stand tall, dude. Think of Dexter Lawrence out there in front of you. Don't even imagine 50. 30.6% of the time they blitz. That's nothing new to Bryce Young, man. Keep on blitzing that young man. He's going to be all right. 10 rushing touchdowns, that's tied for 11th that they allow. 20 passing touchdowns they allow, that's tied for 25th. There are opportunities here, fellas. they can get after this defense and they can put up some yardage, they can put up some points. If we can kind of string together a couple of stops early in the game, I would love to see an aggressive approach early on from Canales and company.
I just realized Troy Hill is on their defense. We lost. It's all done.
We're toast now. They've got the guy.
He's going to give the secret codes to Evero's defense. Sorry, I just saw that and I thought it was funny.
Yeah,
what sticks out to you, Bryson?
Look, there's a clear game plan, and we've talked about it week in and week out. This is a defense that's susceptible to really both the run and the pass. But you have a running back that is extremely efficient, and you have a rookie running back who is making his return or making his debut really in the NFL in Jonathan Brooks. Lean on that. Continue to run, pound the rock, play action off of it, set Bryce up for success, and take your chances when they're there. I mean, clear game plan against a much lesser defense than what you just played in the Kansas City Chiefs. You know, they're struggling in a lot of areas, and I think, you know, there is a clear path to success versus this defense. We'll see if Canales can be stubborn with the run. Obviously not confident in that based off of his history, but, you know, we'll see if that happens moving forward.
Yeah, I'll say
Carter's comment. Did you see that? But we got Devin Tompkins, so who's going to give it who? I love that. Yeah.
And David Moore.
I think, and Bryson touched on this a little bit, I think this is the game you deploy Jonathan Brooks. Full out. I want to see him on at least 10 rushes to Chuba's 20, and let's throw the ball with him too in the backfield, and let's open this thing up with him, because I think that's going to add another element to, Tampa Bay can't really game plan for, because they don't know what this Brooks guy's got besides what he did in college. So I think that adds a little wrinkle to Canales' game plan and could help them out against their scheme and what they know of him. And then, just keep what you did against the Chiefs too. Like, don't hold back on those deep shots and those deep crossers and Bryce taking chances with jump balls. Because I think what you saw with the Chiefs added in with a successful run game, obviously didn't have it last week, but if you add that in, I think that really is going to open up things even more game plan wise with Bryce and company on this offense. So I do think I feel like every week we talk about it. Every week, Ricky, we look at this defensive keys. It's run the ball, run the ball.
Stubborn. That's it, man.
So hopefully they do that this weekend.
Yeah, and to quote Steve the Pirate, Christ, we're playing Boy Scouts. I think we have a chance to say that versus this run defense. Pound the rock. I mean, these guys have been Boy Scouts to this point in the season on defense. So
I need a better imitation of Steve the Pirate, though, out of you.
Yeah, come on, dude. Y'all made me do the stupid cat growl. Come on, man.
I don't remember the specifics in regards to how he sounds. I just remember the quote. So
I'm actually just really impressed and proud that you tied all that together and brought it home like that, dude. That was crazy good.
I appreciate it, man. I appreciate it.
All right, so what do we got here? Look, for the Panthers, this is what we've been doing the past few weeks, right? One slide just to kind of show things. But I'm going to switch it up a tiny bit here. I'm going to go through this real fast. We lost at home to Andy Reid. What'd you say, Curtis?
I said, but wait, there's more.
But wait, there's more. Yeah. Lost at home to Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, and the Kansas City Chiefs 30-27. Bryce Young takes another step toward locking down the starting job for the remainder of the season. Current record is 3-8. I know we said that we wouldn't be going into this Carolina Panthers deep dive into their stats and stuff, right? Because they're 3-8, they're 3-7, whatever. They're losing football games. I think that they earned a little bit more credit from us. So I'm not going to give you all of the horse and pony show that we did for the other team to kind of inform us, because we've been watching this team. We know this team. But let's give a little bit of love here instead. Offensive keys for this Carolina Panthers team, in my opinion. 876 rushing yards, and you still see the graphic right up there, my favorite graphic in the world, Big League Chew. 876 rushing yards. That's 5th most in the league. 7 rushing touchdowns. That's tied for 10th most in the league. And he has also added Mr. Jugs Machine for 30 minutes a day himself has added 31 receptions for 126 yards and a touchdown. Bryce Young. Look, I kept his real simple here because we just spent most of the first hour of this show talking about it. So if you missed that, rewind the episode, go check it out. 2-2 as a starter since return to the lineup. That's what I think is key. This dude is winning as many football games as he's lost, and he's playing against pretty good competition, and he's doing it. Both free agent offensive guards are top 25 graded interior offensive linemen in the entire NFL per PFF. That is a humongous get for the Carolina Panthers, who had guys that look like me and probably had as much playing experience in the NFL as me doing the job last year. And that was so alarming. And I see Alex's super chat. Are y'all really going to make me do this? Do I really have to do this?
I'm going to set a standard here.
Uh-oh.
$10 or more, and you get a Ricky cat growl. That's a stipulation.
How did this turn into this?
We do appreciate it. And we might have to rotate it. Maybe it's a cat growl as we rotate through, and you might hear Bryson and I's at some point. But $10 is the
he's gonna send the
$5.
Alex is a petty dude. He's gonna send it.
But we do appreciate it, Alex. Cheers to Alex.
Cheers, buddy.
He was missing in that chat. I'm glad he showed up. Don't damn it, my mic was not muted there. I thought that I was saying that to myself, and now he knows it. I spilled the beans. There it is. See what I told you.
There it is. Oh, that was nice.
Yeah,
was that better?
That was up there with the guy who created that music video.
Yeah.
Oh, Ken Woodley or whatever, man, he's the best, man. I can recite that whole damn thing. We used to watch that before every game when it came out. Shout out to Ken Woodley, man. I would love to have him on the show sometime just to see what he's doing, you know.
Do we want to move to the defense, or do we want to touch on?
No, I mean, unless you guys had anything that you wanted to talk about with the offense there, if there was anything that struck your fancy, but if not, we could do the defense and then do a overall, like, hey, if something pops out at you, go for it. Defense, man, this was a pretty easy one, to be honest, to pick. DJ Wanham is the guy on the left there, and in 2 games since his return, he's had, and this is a return from very serious concerning physical injury and setbacks that come from it, infection, life-threatening stuff. In 2 games since his return, 11 tackles, 7 stops, 8 quarterback pressure, 13.6 quarterback pressure rate, the best among our edges all season, and 2 sacks. That is tied for 3rd most on the team. And it would have been, I think, it still would have been 3rd, I think. But Charles Harris, when he was cut, kind of made it easier for him to get closer to the top. He only trails the team lead by 1 sack right now, and he's played 2 games. So the difference that DJ Wanham has made for that defense is wild to me. JC Horn right there in the middle. We talked about this last week, man, when you talked about biggest disappointment and biggest surprise. JC Horn has played 98.1% of defensive snaps this season. Clap for him, man, because that has always been the thing that people doubted about him and that he may not be able to overcome, and he's done it, and he's been an integral piece. Josie Jewell is the guy on the right there. I put that in there for Bryson again, man. Bryson just has a really nice smile, so you try to crack it out of him every now and then. You know what I mean? Since week 8, Josie Jewell has had 31 tackles, 15 stops, 3 quarterback pressures, and 1 sack. Maybe the part that I like the most about Josie in that stretch, he's allowed a 53.93 passer rating in that stretch. And he has been targeted. That's not off of some lack of, challenges that he's been faced with. He's been targeted, man. He's just playing really solid football right now. And I think that that's going to be important when you talk about the yards after catch aspect for this Tampa Bay defense. You got guys like Cade Otton playing that tight end position that has kind of emerged as a little bit of a threat for them. I think that Cade Otton is going to be a guy that you really got to look for in this game. Mike Evans, we already know what he does. Josh Palmer or Trey Palmer, the kid out of Nebraska. Josh Palmer plays for the Chargers, and he had about 3,000 drops the other night. Trey Palmer is the kid that played for the Nebraska Cornhuskers and now plays for the Buccaneers. He's a speedy guy. He can create. There's a lot of things here, but Josie Jewell is a guy who has really played well at that off-ball linebacker position. So I'm happy to see it.
Ricky, I have a question for you. Is 53.93 passer rating allowed? Is that good?
Yeah, it's pretty good, Bryson.
Yeah.
To put it in perspective, and I hate to even say this, J.C. Horn has allowed a passer rating of around 98 this season.
That's really damn good.
Now, look, the positions are different, obviously, right? But 53.93, man, pretty damn good.
Okay, that's interesting. I'm gonna take a mental note of that moving forward. Thank you, Ricky.
Anything I could do for you, Bryson?
I think someone said this. Maybe it was Alex in the chat, but Dan Morgan deserves a lot more credit than what we all give him this offseason. The record doesn't show it, but the guys he's brought in outside of a couple, both in free agency and the draft, have played pivotal roles, both offensively, defensively, and on special teams, and have contributed pretty damn well in the success of this team. So I just wanted to give him a shout out, because for Wanham to come back and to play as well as he has, and sadly I'll admit even Josie Jewell these past couple of weeks, kudos to him, and kudos to Evero too for obviously pulling for Jewell to be signed, I'm sure, with his familiarity with him. And then obviously Dan Morgan keying in on Wanham in a position that we all raised hell about once they got rid of Brian Burns and had really no answer until they brought in Wanham and Clowney. And then we have the injuries with Wanham, and we know the story from there. So just hats off to Dan Morgan for that. If you guys are good, I think we're going to go to our bets, and then we will do predictions. So if chat, come alive here. Tell us your prediction for this weekend, and also tell us your favorite Thanksgiving side dish. But for the bets this week, let's go through it, and let's have Bryson start us off here, if I can get this graphic up. You went with CD Lamb. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so out of the last 5 weeks, he has hit over 6.5 receptions in 4 weeks of the 5 weeks. In the last 5 weeks, he's had 63 targets. And if you want to talk about just specifically with Cooper Rush, he's had 24 targets in the last 2 weeks. So I think he's going to be involved at a heavy rate that he has been continually through this backup quarterback game play in Dallas. So I think 6.5 is a pretty safe bet for CeeDee Lamb moving forward for the Dallas Cowboys in this game. I think it's going to hit. I know I was the only one that didn't hit last week, and I regret that. I feel terrible, and that's why I took CeeDee Lamb this week. I think this is a very safe bet.
Ricky, why'd you go with Gibbs? You're doubling up again here.
Yeah, look.
Or doubling down, I should say. Man,
I'm going to tell you about this Jahmyr Gibbs thing, though, for me. David Montgomery is questionable a little bit right now, right? There still is no guarantee. Wesley Carrier's back in the building. I appreciate you, man.
Yeah, we got to stop here. I'm sorry. Hold on.
Let's stop. Yeah, let's stop.
Wesley Carrier, I believe one of the first times in our stream. So just hats off to you.
Wesley, is this your first time watching the show, man? Or is this your first time commenting on the show? It can't be the first time he watched, right? Because he called you Wine Win Wednesdays or Wine Win Curtis.
Yeah. The first time he's I think chatted in the stream. But it sounds like he's been a regular. He knows my wine antics. So Wesley Carrier, we do appreciate it. Vote Panthers Pro Bowl, # Vote Panthers Pro Bowl, $99. Man, this guy's on a tear tonight. We do appreciate it, Wesley.
Absolutely.
I will absolutely get off of this episode tonight. Yeah,
I got to get a beer because I'm
going to get off of this episode tonight, and I'm going to go vote for every single Panthers player I can on the Pro Bowl again, just because Wesley confirmed to me that I'm supposed to do it some more. So appreciate that, man. That's incredible.
Cheers, man.
Yeah, cheers. Hell yeah, dude. Cheers, Wesley.
Yeah, Ricky, you talk about Jameer, and I'll go get myself another.
I'll give you a few minutes, Curtis. Yeah. All right. So Jameer Gibbs. Here's the thing about this bet that I love so much. David Montgomery is questionable. I think that he's going to play, right? But it's not even a shoe-in that he's going to play. So if you can get in and you can get this bet early, and Jameer Gibbs is the feature back on the Thanksgiving game, and I believe they play Chicago. Is that correct? Am I tripping on that? They play the Bears, right? Yeah.
Yep.
That's an opportunity, man. Like, they could have a pretty big lead in that game, and they could want to run the ball. Jameer Gibbs is one carry away from surpassing 68.5 rushing yards. And you saw it last week. And remember what he did last season. Now, I know last season it was as a rookie, right? And they kind of eased him into the flow of the game and into the team's plans. But David Montgomery is that bruiser back. He's the Chuba Hubbard almost of their offense, where he is a one cut downhill. And now he's got a little bit of shake to him too. I'm not saying that he can't move, but his role is to absorb contact and burst through it. That is what he does so well. His contact balance is a superpower. It might as well be a cape draped on the back of his jersey. Him being able to do that, it takes a toll on a player after a while. Jameer Gibbs starts getting a bigger role in this offense as they go on. And it has been that way the last couple of weeks. I believe he cleared the 90-yard mark last week. I think that as long as this over-under for his rushing props are in that under 70 range, dude, I'm going to be hard-pressed not to throw money at it every single week, to be honest. This Detroit Lions team is one of the best rushing offenses you will ever see in the NFL, especially this year. And that's even with Todd Monken and that Ravens offense that is circled around it. This offensive line and their run schemes that they use are phenomenal. So give me Jameer Gibbs on Thanksgiving. I think if John Madden were here, man, I think he would be giving Jameer Gibbs that turducken and talking about, oh boy, he's got a little less turkey leg on the turkey because there's a turkey leg not on the turkey. You know, like he would do one of those great John Madden things, you know, he's got more mud on his pants, so there's probably less mud on the field type of deals. It's a winner. I like Jameer Gibbs, man. I like the possibility of him having a giant game on Thanksgiving.
That was pretty spot on for John Madden. Bravo to you. I do need to cheers Wesley. I'm a man of my word. When you do a super chat, you're getting a cheers from all of us. So we do appreciate it again.
Hell yeah, man.
I'm going Jameson Williams this week. I'm drinking the Kool-Aid. Did we all go Thanksgiving games? Is Dallas playing on Thanksgiving?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, so this
Yep.
is a Thanksgiving special. This was not planned. I didn't even realize that until actually looking at it right now. But Lions on Thanksgiving, they're a different team. They just are. They play usually pretty well on Thanksgiving and show out, and that's a lot of reasons why they play on that game. It's been a tradition for decades. But let me get you some stats here. So Jameson Williams over 47.5 receiving yards. 7 of the last 9 games he's went over that mark, and pretty handedly. He's also facing a Bears team who, against the Vikings this past week, gave up 162 yards to the Vikings' number 2 wide receiver in Jordan Addison, and they shut down Justin Jefferson on 27 yards. So I'm hitting this every day of the week. Jameson Williams also played in a Thanksgiving game last year and put up 50-plus yards and a touchdown, I believe. So I am all over this week. I know it's a divisional matchup against a pretty solid Bears defense, but I do think Jameson Williams is going to show out in this one. And I think this number, his receiving yards, is low, based off of what he's hit over the last 8-9 games. So give me all of this. This is our parlay for week 13. If you would like to join a sports book and start betting, it's signupexpert.com/Panthers. You click on the sports book of your choosing. You don't have to download any apps. You just go to that link, click on it, sign up and you can start betting. Please take advantage of our designated link. We would gladly appreciate it. Again, we are going for 3 for 3 this week. Damn it. Let's hit on it on Thanksgiving.
And Curtis,
Ricky
the other thing I'll
wants
say
to
when
say
you
something. Go ahead.
Yeah, when you talk about the landing page, though, one important thing about the landing page too, though, is that if you see these bets and you like them, like these are the numbers that you like, these are the odds that you like, but you go to the app that you are currently using, and these numbers are either higher that they're offering, right? Like you have to clear 71.5 for Jahmyr Gibbs, or maybe the VIG, the buy-in is a little bit higher on it. Go to that signupexpert.com/Panthers, and it will take you to every other sports book that you can be legally betting on at that time, and go look for those lines. Go find the most favorable lines that you can, and then sign up for an account, dude. And most of those things have like free bonuses that they will give. When your first deposit, they give you a bonus, or they'll give you a match, or they'll do a worry-free parlay or something. Sign up for it. Get the best odds that you can, and use our sign-up page for it, man. Why not? It's everything in one place for you. I want to do one more thing because of Wesley's generosity tonight, and Bo brought this up, and he says, was that John Madden or Rodney Dangerfield? I'm a big Rodney Dangerfield guy, and if you guys know Katie Nolan, the girl that used to be on ESPN and stuff, and she's been on like her husband is Dan Soder, the comedian. Is it Soder or Sauter? I don't remember. He does this bit where he talks about a modern day Rodney Dangerfield, and it's one of my favorite jokes of all time. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to try to do a complete just Rodney Dangerfield impersonation now, because he is one of my favorites. And it's the same joke that Dan Sauter told. And he says, they say that love is a fluid thing now. And I guess that means that I'm in love with a puddle.
Ricky, I love
you. You are a world
Wesley's
treasure.
been so generous, man. I feel like I got to tap dance a little bit, right? Come on, man. Give them what the people paid for.
All right, we're going to go to the chat here before we go to our predictions, because I asked them what they thought. So Carter says Panthers 38, Bucks 31. It's going to be a shootout.
Wow.
We got Panthers Bo. The lawsuit against his dad, but Panthers win 34-27. Alex says 28-27 Panthers. And I think that is it. Panthers Bo is loving your impersonation there. So bravo. Ricky, start us off. Who do you got in this game? Give us a score.
All right, so they say that the Buccaneers give up around 25-ish, right, points per game. We just put up 27 against the Chiefs. We're at home. This is typically a spot where I think that you might think that there's a letdown for this home team that just kind of played above their expected level against a serious competitor. So I think that it would make a lot of sense to play cautious here, and I won't fault anyone for doing so. I think that the Panthers win this game 30. I think we put up 30 points in this football game. I think we win this ball game 30-26. And I think that there's going to be some wonky stuff that happens. And I think that Bryce Young continues this trajectory that he has. I think Chuba Hubbard has a nice day. I think Jonathan Brooks finds the end zone. I think the rookie gets his first touchdown this week against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I think that Xavier Legette gets back in the end zone. I think we see 2 rookie players get touchdowns in this game, and Bryce Young is going to have another 64% or better completion percentage and a really nice statistical output.
Bryce?
Yeah. I think I agree with Ricky. I think Carolina wins this game. I mean, I'm almost like guaranteeing a win for the Carolina Panthers in this game. I think Xavier Legette has a bounce back game in a major way, his best game of his career in the NFL to this point. I think he takes last week personal with that drop. I think Bryce Young continues to show why he was drafted number 1 a year ago. I think the Panthers win 28-24 versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think there's a clear path for Carolina in this game. Involve Chuba Hubbard, involve Jonathan Brooks at a high level, play action, take advantage of the defense when it's there. I think this is a winnable game for Carolina, and I think they do come out with the win.
I'm going to pull the college game day prediction. So we don't get cursed. I'm going to go with the Bucs because I do think Carolina has a pretty good shot in this game, and I'm riding high off of how Bryce Young played. I'm going to flip Bryson's score. I'm going to say the Bucs win 28-24 based off of the curse. I do think Carolina seriously does have a pretty damn good shot. They played Baker. They've limited him in the past. I know he's 3-0 against them, but he's only thrown above 230 yards once against them. The other two, 137 in that game at the end of the season last year. And then in December of last year, it was 200 yards. So they limited him. He obviously, Mike Evans is back. He doesn't have, he doesn't have Godwin. And I do think there's Canales' knowledge of that entire offense and even the defense and how Todd Bowles calls defenses, I think is going to help them. So, but I'm going to go against, I don't want us all picking Carolina. I just don't want to fall into that trap. So I'll take the Bucs 28-24, but I do think Carolina has a really good shot in this game. And I do think, like Ricky said before, I don't think this is a flash in the pan. I think Bryce Young continues to build off of what he's done every single week the past 3 or 4 weeks.
And I think he needs to, right? Like, this is an opportunity that is a real opportunity. And I think you got to show that wasn't a one-off, that wasn't the Green Bay Packers game. And then you go and you play the Jaguars and have a complete stinker, right? I think you have to answer that bell this time.
All right. So I asked you guys, and if chat, you can chime in. We'll talk about it, and then we'll go to you guys. Your favorite Thanksgiving side dish. Yeah, we'll show the picks here briefly while they're thinking because they probably forgot. There's our picks, Alex, for this week. Jamison Williams, CeeDee Lamb, and Jahmyr Gibbs. All Thanksgiving matchups, so make sure you guys get those in if you are going to join our parlay. We would appreciate it if you would chime in on Twitter because I'll post this tomorrow morning. And then if you guys are tailing us, we would appreciate if you would at least, like the tweet, quote tweet us, show us a screenshot of the bet, whatever it is. I know Alex has had some winnings based off of some of our bets in the past, so we would appreciate it. And hopefully we can hit all of these this week. All right, so Thanksgiving side dishes. Who wants to go first?
Bryson, start this.
I got you, man. I think it's
one
a clear
dish. That's it. One dish.
I think it's a clear 1-1 here. I mean, I'm not sure there's much of a competition when you walk in to your grandma's house and you see the crock pot sitting there and you see some mac and cheese in that crock pot with the Ritz crackers on top. I mean, it is hard to beat mac and cheese, man. I think there's one dish that comes close, but I'll save that for you guys in case you pick that. But mac and cheese is my clear 1-1 for a side dish for Thanksgiving.
Okay, so I am tasked with making mac and cheese for our family's Thanksgiving celebration, which I take a lot of pride in that people even want that because it is, as Bryson said, it is a lot of people's favorite thing on the table. So there's a lot of pressure on the mac and cheese. I switch it up and I'll do a baked or I'll do a creamy stovetop. I'm not much of a crock pot guy. I just don't really they seem too convenient for me, and I like to make shit difficult. You know what I mean? Like, I just like to go the extra step with everything. I'm an idiot. For me, though, I am a potato freak. Any kind of potato. So the most traditional potato is a mashed potato on Thanksgiving, right? So that's what I think that I would probably say here.
That was the second.
That's the second, right? Mashed potatoes, dude, that velvety, that glorious mashed potato with the nice butter on top, perfectly seasoned. I like it with a little like roasted garlic mashed and blended within it. Don't skimp out. Don't do skim milk, man. It's Thanksgiving. Be fat, get all the calories, go heavy cream, half and half at least, for crying out loud. But there's another preparation that I just want to say here and put it out in the universe because it is my favorite potato preparation. And we had it at Thanksgiving last year. Fondant style potatoes are absolutely redonkulous. It is where you get this beautiful caramelized top and bottom, but they cook in chicken stock or chicken broth, butter for the first like hour at a lower temperature, absorbing all of that flavor. Then you turn them over and you put more butter and herbs, thyme, rosemary, all kinds of herbs, lay on top of it and roast it at a high temperature. And it is like, I'm telling you, man, it's potato candy. It's the craziest thing you'll ever eat. And it is the most satisfying dish I can have on Thanksgiving.
So, funny story about mac and cheese. If you don't know from my voice, I'm from Wisconsin, not from North Carolina.
No way.
And mac and cheese was never a thing for Thanksgiving or Christmas. We moved down here, and it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. And we were always the ones at a Friendsgiving or whatever the gathering was to make the mac and cheese as well. And I feel like we do a pretty damn good job at it. So that
you
would
guys
probably
do. You guys absolutely do. You guys were the ones that for the Friendsgiving brought the mac and cheese, and that was always killer. I got to give you credit on that.
appreciate that. So that would be up there. Ricky stole mine. It would be mashed potatoes, hands down. I feel like that is a staple. I do really like stuffing as well. That'd probably be 3 for me. But it's just something about mashed potatoes. Ricky, I need to try. You need to send me whatever you just said, because that sounds damn good.
Yeah, man.
Alex, shut up. I'm tired of your ass.
Hey, these comments are great though. They're bringing up some that I kind of forgot about. The sweet potato thing with the roasted marshmallows. Yeah, dude, I dig that too. And usually they have like the pecans or something chopped up on top too.
Oh, that shit hits.
That's a killer dish, and that hits so good with like a nice slice of turkey with it. Because I don't know if y'all are like me. I like to combine a couple of things on a bite. You know, like give me the mashed potatoes, the turkey, and stuffing on the same forkful. That's a little bit of Thanksgiving heaven.
What are your thoughts on turkey? I want an honest opinion. Do you eat turkey only on Thanksgiving?
No, well,
I love turkey.
I love turkey, man. I eat like turkey roll-ups for lunch. Like I just take like a slice of cheese and a couple slices of like deli meat turkey, roll it up, and like that's what I eat for lunch with like an apple or something like that. But the other thing, there's nothing better than a smoked turkey breast that you could do like on the offset or something like that. You let that thing, you brine it, you get it really juicy, and then you get a nice seasoning on it, man, and you could control like cooking it yourself so it's not dry. No offense to all of the wonderful grandmothers and mothers out there and dads and stuff that are out there. A lot of times you go to the turkey event on Thanksgiving and that turkey shreds a little bit, right? You start seeing it and it's stringy when it's getting cut and you're like, shit, that's dry. I'm going to need that whole gravy boat has to come to me first. Like I'm going to have to wet that thing up before I can eat that dry bird. But a good turkey, man, is absolutely phenomenal for me.
Bryson, turkey.
I love turkey, man. It's my go-to. I prefer it over ham. 10 times out of 10, man. You cook it anyway. You deep fry it. You smoke it. You put it in the oven. Whatever it is, man. It's good. As long as it's not super dry, I'm fucking with turkey heavy for sure.
Yeah.
See, I mean, I like turkey on like a sub, but I am not going to seek out hot turkey. I'm just not. I'll eat it on Thanksgiving, and that's about it.
So do you guys do like the honey baked ham or something like that then? Do you have like another protein that you do on Thanksgiving?
No, we eat turkey on Thanksgiving, but I don't eat it. Like I'm not eating a baked turkey any other day of the year, pretty much.
Got to shout out Alex too with the collards. I don't really get collards at my Thanksgiving, but I love collard greens. And then the Southern style green bean casserole. Yeah, that hits too, man, with the little like French onion strings on top and stuff. I also am a huge fan. Do y'all get like the broccoli cheese casserole where it's like the broccoli with the Ritz crackers broken up with the cheddar cheese? I also love that, man. That is a terrific side dish. You've never had that?
No, I've not had that.
Man, look, when you guys come down for December 8th, man, we might just cook up a Thanksgiving thing. We might just smoke a turkey breast and do all this shit again.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
So one other question about Thanksgiving. Is it stuffing or is it dressing?
Both. It's both. Stuffing is in that bird. The dressing is cooked in a separate pan. 2 different things, man.
I've always just said stuffing. I don't like stuffing. It's I like got an aversion from it. Like I think I got food poisoning from it 1 year, so I've lost my appetite for it. But I've always called it just stuffing. I'm not sure exactly what dressing is.
All right, I got one more. Just give me a quick answer. Pie or no? Are you a pie fan or not? Maybe that's even crazy for me even to ask. But pie or no pie?
Hell yes, I'm a pie fan.
Yes, I'm a pie fan. Can I want to give one shout out to my late grandmother, man. She makes the best. She made the best pie I've ever had in my life, and now I make it. She gave me her handwritten recipe card. My grandmother was like one of my favorite people in the world, and one of the reasons I started doing Panther content creating. And she gave me this handwritten recipe card, man. It's for a sour cream apple cinnamon pie, and I know that sounds crazy and it might sound terrible to some people. It is one of the most insanely delicious bites of food you will ever have in your life. It has this like cinnamon brown sugar crumble on top, and the inside is like beautifully custardy sour cream apple cinnamon thing. Man, I'm about to go make it right now after this episode. Now thinking about that,
Ricky, I politely request that be made when
you
we
got it,
come
bro.
to your house.
I will gladly. Anybody that I can turn on to this thing, man, I will. So I will 100% make that.
I want
you,
to
bro.
scoop of
Thank
ice
you.
cream with that as well.
Bingo. Yes. Yes.
I haven't been up. You guys are going to attack me for this, but I'm not a big pie fan, but I have become a pretty big fan of, and I'll probably get shit for how I pronounce this, is pecan pie. I think it's damn good.
Hell yeah.
And it's probably my favorite. I'm not a big fan of pumpkin pie. It's just, it doesn't do it. I don't know if it's a texture thing. I need
the pumpkin pie too.
I love pumpkin pie.
Yep.
Man. Love
I
it.
need the pumpkin pie, and I need a little bit of like coffee with some Jameson and some Baileys in it while I'm drinking or while I'm eating that pumpkin pie, man. I want to, I want the entire planes, trains, and automobiles experience. I want the entire Thanksgiving deal, man.
Well, we appreciate everyone for tuning in. We went a little long on the Thanksgiving dishes, but hey, man, it's what, we're 2 days out, not even day and a half. We wish you all a happy Thanksgiving. Enjoy time with your family, your friends, if you're traveling, if you're not, and enjoy it and feast and enjoy the football games. There's going to be 3 that day. There's one on Black Friday, and then we got obviously the games slated for Sunday. So enjoy it all. We'll be back next week. If you are going to the game, we'll be there. I think it's a 4:00 kickoff this week, so a little bit later. We'll be playing in the dark. Not me and Bryson playing in. You never mind. We're not going into that. We appreciate you guys, and again, 545 listeners on a night we usually don't record and live stream is amazing.
Appreciate
so thank you guys for that support. Thank you all for the super chats. We do graciously appreciate that, and we will see you guys next week. Keep pounding.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Shout out to the Kansas Jayhawks beating Duke.